Chapter 2445. Lin Feng was attacking, Kuroi was attacking, and Xiao Qiu was also attacking. The difference was that Lin Feng's attack had severely injured Dao's triple ghost. It was as if he had kicked open the door with a single kick. It would take some time for the second attack to land, and during this time, Kuroi was the first to enter the door. Soul attacks were more effective than physical attacks. Those two idiots, Dao's triple ghost, cursed inwardly countless times. Chi, Kuroi's soul all pierced through Dao's triple ghost, who was already severely injured. The latter let out a shrill cry and stared at Lin Feng in the distance. His figure turned into a white light and disappeared. There was no way to speak here. However, how could Dao's triple ghost not know who had prevented him from advancing to the roulette battle? And who would have a last laugh? Chi. Lin Feng attacked again. He didn't attack Xiao Qiu, but directly attacked Kuroi, the four-eyed special life form who had just scored 1 point and whose entire body was shining with a misty white light. The timing was just right because Lin Feng didn't plan to kill Dao's triple ghost at all. It was better to be safe than sorry. His next attack was his true goal. Whoever killed Dao's priest's 3 ghosts, he would kill them. As for the remaining cultivators in position 3 and 5, only one of them had obtained 1 point. In other words, he only needed to kill the one who had obtained 1 point, and he would be able to obtain a spot in the ranking battle. His opponent was a four-eyed special life form. Perfect, because his attack was too strong. If he didn't give him enough pressure and kept attacking from the side, it would be very troublesome. However, the demon expert in position 3 didn't have this concern at all. Not only was he seriously injured, but he wasn't good at attacking. Mega Avalanche. Lin Feng finally used 100% of his strength, which was the powerful combat strength he used to kill Yan Handy, and instantly suppress Kuroi. The latter's 4 eyes were shocked. What a cunning human! Kuroi's 4 eyes stabbed at Lin Feng as he also unleashed his full strength. At this moment, he completely understood Lin Feng's goal. On the other side, Xiao Qiu still couldn't react, but he instantly attacked Lin Feng. Which of the last 500 experts in the field was stupid? They knew very well what was best for them. Pung! Lin Feng didn't seem to care at all when he took the ugly blow. It didn't matter, even if his injuries were a little more serious. His target was Kuroi. His sea of consciousness was in intense pain, but Lin Feng's was incredibly strong. Although he didn't have the 10,000 origin mustard stone to protect him, this body was still a peak godmaster. If Kuroi wanted to kill him with a soul attack, he would have to have a bloodline talent. It's over. Lin Feng's war saber Di-En erupted with all his strength, and the mega avalanche rumbled down. The intent heavenly Tao that appeared in the void fused 100% with the primal chaos heavenly Tao, and the light and darkness frenziedly attacked. Kuroi could no longer resist. The difference in strength was decisive. Dao's triple ghost didn't dare to fight with his full strength because he was afraid of too many things. However, Lin Feng didn't need to worry anymore. As long as he killed Kareth, the advancement slot for the ranking battle would definitely be his. No, Kareth was hysterical, his 4 eyes blood-red and ferocious. However, facing Lin Feng's strongest attack, his physical defense, which wasn't strong in the combat zone, completely collapsed. He turned into a ray of white light and disappeared. Lin Feng's sea of consciousness suffered a heavy blow, and his physical body was almost shattered by the ugly. However, Lin Feng still survived. I'm not dead yet. Lin Feng smashed into the light wall of the duel area and grinned. The blurry white light flashing around his body meant that he had obtained another point. He had killed the 5th position 4-eyed special life form. He won. He had advanced to the top 100 of the combat zone. Roulette battle. Clang. For some reason, Di-En's hand, that was holding the war saber, gained a bit more strength. Facing the ugly roaring in front of him, Lin Feng's eyes burned with an unyielding fighting spirit, and he fought again. Heavily injured against heavily injured. Neither was weaker than the other. The more injured one was, the crueler it was, and the more it tested one's willpower and fighting strength. And this was what Lin Feng was good at. How many times had he narrowly escaped death? Now that he was up against someone who was also seriously injured but weaker than him, Lin Feng relied on his tyrannical fighting spirit and superior strength to stay until the end. Boom! Lin Feng's strength was completely depleted at this moment. Warsaber Dean destroyed the white light, and only one person was left in the entire combat zone, standing proudly. He won. Congratulations, newcomer number 8484, for obtaining the entry to Duel Area 77 and completing 3 kills. Newcomer will be awarded double 1,000 hidden revered points, for a total of 3,000 hidden revered points. The voice of the top AI sounded. Lin Feng revealed a weak smile. His consciousness instantly returned to the independent space, and a clear stream of energy flowed through his body, instantly returning him to his peak state. This body was given to him by the top AI, so it was easy for him to recover. Good. Lin Feng smiled with satisfaction. Entering the top 100 and receiving double 2,000 hidden revered points was something he already knew, but the extra 1,000 hidden revered points was something he didn't expect. It should be something unique to completing 3 or 4 kills. 2 kills probably wouldn't be a special reward, because the promotion usually gave at least 2 points. 3 kills would give him 500 hidden revered points, and double for a newcomer would give him 1,000 hidden revered points, which was probably comparable to 4 kills. With these 3,000 hidden revered points, I have 6911 hidden revered points. Lin Feng opened the hidden revered Luo crystal and looked at the changes in his hidden revered points. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't happy, as 3,000 hidden revered points was enough to buy a pretty good pinnacle true treasure. But to him, the right way to use it was to use it on a blade, enter the top training facility. The improvement of one's own strength was the most fundamental. External items were just external items, and he already had 3 pinnacle true treasures. One more would just be icing on the cake. It wouldn't change much. Second place on the newbie ranking list. Lin Feng looked at Huang Qinyan's ranking and smiled. The gap was huge before, but now was very small. Yin Handy, who was just eliminated by him, was 3rd place, and Man Jiang was 4th. They were both once known as the 3 most promising supernovas in the training camp. But now they were all surpassed by him. It's not realistic for me to catch up with Huang Qin Yin in the battle domain. Let's wait for the survival domain. Lin Feng looked at the names above and closed the hidden revered Luo crystal. Only half of the new era had passed, and he still had time to catch up. Since he was ranked 2nd in the newbie ranking list, after the survival domain, he definitely had the ability to stand at 1st place on the newbie ranking list. I won't lose to you. Lin Feng's consciousness was immersed, and he didn't relax at all because of the promotion roulette battle. He quickly continued to comprehend. There were 20 years of cultivation time before the roulette battle began. Continue to improve. Lin Feng, who was immersed in cultivation, didn't know how big of a commotion he had caused in the training camp. Chapter 2446. 2 rookies advanced to the roulette battle. Not to mention the Hidden Zone training camp. Even the Deicide training camp had not had such a thing for more than 10,000 years. In fact, the last time 2 rookies advanced to the roulette battle in the Hidden Zone training camp was 25,000 years ago. The roulette battle for rookies alone had not happened for 381 years. This time, not only the Hidden Zone training camp, but even the Hidden Zone city in the Taichung Zone God realm was in an uproar. The Venerables were not surprised by Huang Qinyan's advancement because she was a super genius in the last 1,000 years. However, Lin Feng's advancement shocked them. An ordinary rookie from a remote astral world with no background actually advanced to the roulette battle. Moreover, he did not just rely on luck. The combat strength that Lin Feng displayed had already completely reached the level of the 61st checkpoint. You're worth teaching. The region in charge of the combat field was a kind-looking fatty named Buki Huangzun. As Huangzun, his body was naturally flawless. This was the original form of a special life form. As Huangzun, there was naturally a difference in strength, just like how Venerables could have a world of difference in strength. Although Sovereign Buqi had a benevolent look, The aura he exuded was incomparable to that of 10 deputy regents. The pressure of being in a superior position for a long time made the group of deputy regents feel as if they were in an ice cave, their faces solemn. Yin Zong, you're the one monitoring the little guy. Tell me. Buki Huangzun narrowed his eyes and said. Yin Zong Huangzun took a step forward and cupped his hands. Yes, sir. Rookie Lin Feng came from the Xingfeng astral world and cultivated the top Wanxiang heavenly path, 9 heavens of light and darkness. He has a strong will, a Hundan body, and has cultivated the soul. The deputy regents nodded and did not care too much. This information, that was heaven-defying in the eyes of ordinary cultivators, was nothing in the hidden Zun training camp. There were people who cultivated stronger Wanxiang heavenly path than Lin Feng, and countless Hundan bodies. As for cultivating the soul, there was nothing strange. Lin Feng's strongest points are his comprehension and speed of improvement. Ming Zong Huangzun said, when he first entered the training camp, he was unknown. According to the information provided by the top artificial intelligence, his strength was indeed one of the weakest among the rookies. However, in just a short 5,000 years, he has improved at a godly speed. Although this is only the ability of the combat domain, his future potential can already be seen. Buki Huangzun nodded and rubbed his round belly. He smiled and said, it seems that this child has great potential. It's just that he was buried in the Xingfeng astral realm, but he suddenly exploded after coming to the training camp. Such situations were very common. Because Lin Feng was born in a remote star boundary, he had no resources, no teachers, and no good cultivation place. Even if he had great potential, it would be difficult for him to display it. However, after entering the 7th divine realm, the training camp was the best place to nurture new talents, so his potential was immediately stimulated. Sir, you are right. Ming Zong Huangzun agreed. Overall, Lin Feng is not inferior to Yin Handy and Manjiang. Moreover, he has the strongest comprehension of humanity. The weakest human body also has the chaos body, and he has stepped into the primordial chaos heavenly way. Buki Huangzun nodded. I believe that many Huangzun will be interested. Battle record is everything. Lin Feng's battle record in the combat domain and his second place on the rookie ranking list will make him more popular than Yin Handy and Manjiang. After all, he is a super genius that only appeared in 381 eras. Huang Qinyan, Lin Feng, a super genius that only appeared once in 381 eras. It caused quite a stir in Qianzuan City. Many venerables had already returned to their respective factions and reported to the higher-ups. There were also many independent Huangzun experts who began to secretly inquire about the two. There were many who wanted to snatch Huang Qinyan, but there were also many who paid attention to Lin Feng. What was the most important thing in the combat domain? Comprehension of laws and realms. This was something that venerables couldn't lack. Once a cultivator who had an outstanding performance in the combat domain became a venerable, their cultivation speed would also be as fast as flying. At this moment, the Xingfeng branch was stunned. Venerable Xingyang, Kuei Yi, and Huangzun were all dumbfounded when they received the news. Venerable Bai Fu, Venerable Nan Qiu, Venerable Hiao, and Venerable Cloud Crane were also stunned. Lin Feng had broken the combat domain shackles of 381 eras in the hidden revered training camp. He was just a rookie. How could he advance to the combat domain's most credible benchmark, the roulette battle? Only those who had reached the peak of the Divine Master Realm could enter without relying on bloodlines or heavenly law treasures. When Lin Feng entered the Great Elimination Sand Stage, all the venerables were excited and happy for Lin Feng. But now this happiness came a little too quickly. It was like they only wanted to take a pile of gold, but now they found a huge mountain of gold. Lin Feng was that mountain of gold. Many Huangzun experts asked me about Lin Feng. Venerable Xingyang spoke after a long time. Me too. Venerable Kuei Ye's expression was wooden. The other venerables nodded. They were all the same. The news of Lin Feng entering the combat domain's roulette battle as a rookie had spread like wildfire. After all, this was not a secret and all the information could be found with a little effort. Some Huang Zun and Venerables wanted to recruit Lin Feng through the Xing Feng branch. Now, our Xing Feng astral boundaries reputation is second to none. Venerable Xing Yang shook his head. I've been trying to make our branch famous, but I haven't succeeded. I didn't expect a rookie to break through the waves. Kuei Yi and Huang Zun said, this child's future is limitless. Venerable Bai Fu said, the Time Virtual Company seems to have received the news as well. I heard that they are regretting it so much that their intestines are turning green. Venerable Lei Ao almost wanted to fight me to the death. All the Venerables laughed. Back then, the Time Virtual Company and the 7th Mercenary Alliance were in a deadlock for Lin Feng. Venerable Xing Yang smiled. Tell them that they will be able to see Lin Feng soon. Why? Venerable Bai Fu did not understand. Kuei Yi and Huang Zun's lips curled up. In the 7th Hidden Venerable Conference, with Lin Feng's current strength, he will be our Xing Feng branch's trump card. Even if he can't suppress the other 4 giants, it will be easy for him to get a spot. All the Venerables nodded. They trusted Lin Feng's current strength. He could reach the limit of a peak divine master in the combat domain. Compared to the branch's strongest, how strong would Lin Feng be when he went all out? They will definitely be shocked. Venerable Xing Yang said confidently. All the Venerables laughed heartily. Lin Feng's rise not only made the Xing Feng branch famous, but it also solved the branch's biggest problem. As the higher-ups of the Xing Feng branch, all the Venerables were happy. Chapter 2447. Top 100 Roulette Battle. Second place on the newcomer rankings. Lin Feng's strength didn't just stun the Xing Feng branch's practitioners. The entire Universe District was in an uproar. This was because both newcomers were from the Universe District. Even Pu Kiki, who was ranked first on the rankings, was from the Universe District. The 5 districts were secretly competing with each other. The Universe District was undoubtedly in the limelight, causing the other 4 districts to pale in comparison. Come, brothers, let's bring the most expensive wine and the best dishes today. Eat to your heart's content. Minluo and I will treat. Wang Zihan laughed valiantly. Minluo stared at him from the side. When did I say I would treat? Don't be so stingy when it's something to be happy about. Wang Zihan patted Minluo's shoulder and laughed happily. Aren't you happy about our little brother Lin Feng's advancement? Minluo was suddenly at a loss for words. Come. Everyone, don't stand on ceremony. Wang Zihan had a straightforward personality and shouted loudly. Chiruo Lin, Yuan Shiyu, and the rest of the strong practitioners were all smiling and joking around. When they received the news, they were all stupefied and stunned. That was the top 100 roulette battle. Lin Feng was a newcomer. How'd he get in? Since they couldn't figure it out, they might as well not think about it. Anyway, the result was right there. It was a fact. They would just treat it as Lin Feng performing excessively and squeezing his way into the top 100 roulette battle. The result wouldn't change anyway. Lin Feng was famous. Even their small and weak Xing Feng astral realm felt proud at this moment. The surrounding gazes were mixed with envy and jealousy, causing the cultivators of Xing Feng astral realm to raise their heads even higher and laugh even more happily. Even Pula, who had always been dissatisfied with Lin Feng, forced a smile and drank with the crowd. He was also very confused and puzzled. However, Lin Feng had entered the top 100 roulette battle. Pula didn't know how he should react. He was stunned. How lucky. When a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven. So what if he enters the roulette battle? He will probably be humiliated in the first round and be eliminated by the Deicide training camp. Whispers came from the next table. Jealousy was obvious. Wang Zihan laughed heartily. You can't eat grapes, so you say that the grapes are sour. Don't you think it's funny? Chiruolin, Yuan Shiyu, and the others laughed together. Isn't that so? Being able to enter the top 100 is already a supreme honor, not to mention that Lin Feng is still a newcomer. You wanted to perform well in the roulette battle? This requirement is too high. Even Pu Kiki can't win against the Deicide training camp. The cultivators from Xing Feng's astral realm spoke with confidence. The cultivators of the next table snorted coldly. Their expressions were ugly, but they didn't know how to refute. After all, it was a fact that their astral realm was completely annihilated. The results were enough to explain everything. Congratulations, Brother Zihan. If you have the chance, please introduce us to Brother Lin Feng. Yes, we would like to get to know him. The cultivators from the other tables gathered around. Among them, there were many geniuses ranked in the top 10,000. They were very interested in Lin Feng. The training camp, in addition to unearthing the potential of newcomers, was also a good place to build connections. A rare newcomer like Lin Feng was naturally someone that all the cultivators wanted to befriend. When he became a venerable in the future, Lin Feng would definitely be a super expert among venerables. Combat field, independent space. After entering the top 100 roulette, he also had 20 years of cultivation time. Adding the previous time, it meant that Lin Feng could cultivate in the combat field for a total of 80 years. This was already very satisfying for Lin Feng. In the combat field, one could only cultivate for 100 years in each era. 80 years was actually not bad. He had already taken all the hidden revered points. His strength had already reached its limit. Lin Feng knew himself well. In the top 100 roulette battles, his strength was at the bottom. In the 77th duel area, he was actually not as good as Taoist Three Ghosts, even if the initial Chaos Heavenly Way was 100% integrated. Because it was only at the initial realm after all. Yen Handy has reached the small success realm. Lin Feng recalled the battle with Yen Handy. Yen Handy's usage of soul power was 100 times more exquisite than his. Compared to Yen Handy's, his initial Chaos Heavenly Tao was as crude as a farmer's. It was also because of him that he was able to fully integrate the initial Chaos Heavenly Way in the dual area. His realm was just one level away, and his comprehension was the best. If Yen Handy was now at the large success realm, no matter how many times he fought with him, he would probably only get a little bit of information. But what he comprehended now was quite huge. This is the small success realm of the Chaos Heavenly Way. Lin Feng studied hard. Without any burden, he had already obtained good enough results. For Lin Feng, there was no pressure at all in the roulette battles. In a one-on-one duel, strength was the foundation. In the blink of an eye, 20 years was very short for cultivators. But for Lin Feng, it was too short. 20 years of cultivating the initial realm of the Chaos Heavenly Way might be okay, but to comprehend the small success realm, it was too far away. No matter how deep his comprehension was, 20 years was just the tip of the iceberg of the small success realm of the Chaos Heavenly Way. The roulette battles were divided into 4 colors. The top 10 were purple roulette battles, 11 to 30 were green roulette battles, 31 to 60 were red roulette battles, and 61 to 100 were white roulette battles. The roulette spun the Hidden Saint training camp against the God Slayer training camp. Whichever cultivator it was, that cultivator would fight. This was the first formal confrontation between the 2 training camps in each era. The top AI would evaluate the initial rankings based on the results of the actual combat field, the number of stages in the actual combat simulation space, and other aspects. One of the tacitly agreed was king against king. Pu Kiki was up against Taigen Decidua, the strongest fighter in the Godslayer training camp. As for Trout Dragon, who was ranked 2nd in the Godslayer training camp, he was up against Tua Kong, who was ranked 2nd in the Hidden Zune training camp. Binxi, ranked 3rd in the Deicide training camp, was up against Alma, ranked 3rd in the Hidden Sovereign training camp. The top 3 against the top 3 was the most eye-catching. Moreover, these battles would be simultaneously transmitted to the combat simulation spaces of the 5 regions, so that they could be watched directly. This was a grand occasion for the 2 great training camps. Every era's king versus king would attract a lot of attention. However, in this era, there was another rare confrontation. Rookie King against Rookie King. The Hidden Noble training camp had 381 eras, and not a single newbie had entered the roulette battle. Although the Godslayer training camp hadn't been around for that long, it had been 27 years since any newcomers had entered the roulette. In this era, there were super rookies emerging from the two great training camps. Among them, there were as many as two hidden Zune training camps. The Godslayer training camp was also in an uproar when they heard the news. However, the real battle was between Yi and Huang Qinyan. After all, there was only one rookie king. Huang Qinyan's score was much higher than Lin Feng's, so she was naturally the one to fight. Chapter 2448. Lin Feng didn't care who he was matched up against. He didn't want to win anyway. The ranking given by the AI was already out. It was a pretty good number, 99, second to last. I didn't think there would be someone with a lower ranking than me. Lin Feng smiled. He didn't care. Although a ranking of 99 wasn't high, the difference between the strength of the white roulette was not as big as the ranking indicated. It was usually just a distance visible to the naked eye. For example, if Daoist 3 Ghosts could advance, his ranking would be around 80. He was 20 places away from him. Was the difference in strength big? Not really. The roulette battle has to be fought 3 times in a row, then rest for 20 years before the final round. Lin Feng was clear about the rules. These could be checked by the AI. The two training camps had a total of 200 cultivators. After 3 rounds, 200 would advance to 100,100, 100 would advance to 50, and finally 50 would advance to 25. The matches were completely matched up by the AI. The two training camps would fight first. The purple roulette would only fight in the first round. The next 2 rounds would be against the red roulette and white roulette. Basically, the winner of the first round would advance to the final round of the big roulette, occupying 10 spots. The green roulette had 40 cultivators from the two training camps. The first round would be against the red roulette, and the third round would be against the white roulette and red roulette respectively. Basically, the remaining 15 spots of the big roulette would appear in the green roulette. There were very few cultivators from the red wheel and white wheel who could enter the top 25 in the past eras. Lin Feng didn't have much hope. He was assigned to the worst white roulette. Even if he was lucky enough to advance to the first round, he might get an opponent from the purple roulette or green roulette in the second round. Even if he got an opponent from the white roulette, the one who could advance to the first round would definitely be stronger than him. In fact, Lin Feng didn't have much hope of advancing to the first round. The average strength of the Deicide training camp was much higher than the Hidden Zune training camp. He was only ranked 99 in the Hidden Zune training camp. If he was in the Deicide training camp, his ranking would probably be in the hundreds. Even if he got an opponent ranked 100, it was very likely that the opponent would be as strong as Daoist 3 Ghosts or even stronger. Therefore, he didn't need to pay attention to it. There was no need to waste time investigating his opponent. Since he was going to lose anyway, Lin Feng focused on training. He would make good use of the last 20 years. The roulette battle had begun. In the previous eras, the finale would always be 3 kings versus kings. But this time, the opening was rather eye-catching because it was a battle between the newcomer kings, Huang Qinyan versus Yi. Lin Feng was also watching. Moreover, he was watching in the actual combat zone, which was a VIP treatment. Being in the area closest to the duel arena, it was much better than being in the combat simulation space. At such a close distance, he could feel the fluctuations of power, the ripples of laws, and even clearly feel the surging killing intent of both sides. Amazing. Lin Feng looked at the battle between the two newcomer kings and sighed deeply. Both of them had true strength, and both of them were much stronger than the current him. Huang Qinyan's sword was as beautiful as a painting. Her concept of the heavenly Tao had completely surpassed the level of minute subtlety and stepped into the realm of exquisite. Yi, as an expert of the Yao clan, not only did he possess the chaos heavenly Tao at large success, but he also had an extremely deep understanding of space, which caused others to tremble in fear. The battle between the two rookie kings pushed the roulette battle of this era to the peak. Neither was willing to give an inch. Lin Feng was mesmerized by the battle. The cultivators of the two training camps also cheered for their respective camps. After a fierce battle, the Deicide training camps Yi came out on top and won the Rookie King battle. Huang Qinyan lost. What a pity. Huang Qinyan's strength is not inferior to Yi's. In fact, she is slightly stronger. Lin Feng felt that it was a pity. However, a battle was not only about combat strength, but also about improvisation, experience, fighting spirit, and so on. Yi, who came out of the deicide training camp, was decisive in killing. His combat skills were clean and neat. He turned the tables against the wind and defeated Huang Qinyan when his combat strength was slightly inferior. These are the cultivators of the deicide training camp. Lin Feng now understood why the hidden venerable training camp lost so miserably against the deicide training camp. This was only in the combat zone. In the survival zone, everyone was fighting to the death. The deicide training camp's cultivators were more suitable for killing and were stronger. After the Rookie King battle, the white roulette battle began. Two small balls fell into the milky white roulette at the same time, causing the hearts of the two training camps to tremble. Gulu, the one from the deicide training camp landed at position 98, while the one from the hidden Zune training camp landed at position 98. Coincidentally, the one from the hidden Zune training camp landed at 99. On the first one, Lin Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't even have time to enjoy the roulette battle before he had to go up. A unique energy descended. Lin Feng touched the roulette, and the energy flashed. He entered the roulette. On the other side, the cultivator ranked 98th in the God-slaying training camp had also entered. He was a monster with 999 eyes all over his body. It was a special life form, 1,000 illusion gem. Deicide training camp. Kill him. Gem. Take out your best 1,000 realms illusory technique and let that brat die a tragic death. The hidden venerable training camp is full of useless people. Let's show them the strength of our deicide training camp. Ha ha! Just like the previous era, as long as the deicide training camp has a higher ranking than the hidden venerable training camp, our deicide training camp can win. How about a 10-win streak first? What kind of rookie king was that? It sounded so good. 1,000 era? Bah, weak. Of course. Arya is the strongest newcomer. This Lin Feng is even weaker than the Phoenix Girl. 1,000 illusion gem will definitely tear him to pieces. The deicide training camp's morale was high. On the contrary, the morale of the hidden elder training camp was somewhat low. After all, they had always been ruthlessly suppressed by the deicide training camp, especially when Huang Qinyan, whom they had high hopes for, was defeated by Yiya. The evaluation of her in the training camp was too high, and their hopes were too high. In the end, they were beaten down by a stick. The deicide training camp was still the strongest. Lin Feng's ranking was clear at a glance. The 99th rank and Huang Qinyan's 75th rank were very different. The top AI would not give a wrong ranking so easily. Lin Feng, indeed, only had the strength of a 99th rank. This also proved everyone's guess. His battle strength was just enough to enter the roulette battle. His opponent is 1,000 illusion gem. He's so strong. Yeah, 1,000 illusion gem from the previous era also entered the roulette battle. He defeated Mo Wu Ji in the first round. We can't help it. Basically, as long as the deicide training camp cultivator is higher than us, we will lose. In the previous era, we only won 27 rounds. It was too tragic. I just hope Lin Feng won't lose too badly. Chapter 2449. Lin Feng versus 1,000 Illusion Lang Mu. There was no information on his opponent, but Lin Feng's combat intuition had always been very strong. From the eyes, all over his body, and his movements, it could be seen that this was not an opponent who was good at close combat. Moreover, his utilization of chaos power was also very rough. At least, it was rougher than his. Good at the soul. His bloodline should be very strong. With so many eyes, he's either good at soul attacks, illusions, or controlling treasures. Lin Feng directly ruled out controlling treasures. Cultivators who were good at controlling treasures to attack relied heavily on treasures of the heavenly axiom. It was very difficult for them to enter the combat field unless they had other specialties, such as space attainments, time attainments, and so on. However, he could not feel it from the opponent's form and aura. It's very likely that he's an opponent who's good at illusions. Secondly, he's good at soul attacks. My luck is not bad. Lin Feng thought to himself. The one he was least afraid of was an opponent who also cultivated the soul. Although the body given by this top intelligence did not have the protection of the 10,000 origin mustard stone, his will would not change. Will was the commander. A strong will was very resistant to illusions. Therefore, he chose the Shattered Spirit Kill book that day and not the illusion-type 10,000 Tribulations Reincarnation Spring. As for soul attacks and defense, will also played a key role. The stronger the will, the stronger the ability to resist soul attacks. The battle had begun. Holding the saber D-een, Lin Feng attacked immediately. After all, he was the strongest at attacking. The mega avalanche suddenly fell and enveloped the entire arena. The subtle concept Heavenly Way combined with the initial chaos Heavenly Way. Light and darkness intertwined and exploded to the extreme in an instant. Lin Feng's strength was completely displayed for the first time among all the cultivators in the two training camps. A human expert who's good at fusion. It's actually the myriad phenomena Heavenly Way combined with light and darkness. The subtle concept Heavenly Way and the chaos Heavenly Way. This human cultivates so many different things. What's the use of cultivating so many different things? He doesn't have any outstanding abilities. No wonder he's only ranked 99th. He's no threat to 1,000 Illusion Lang Mu. He's bound to lose. Those watching from outside the arena were the top 100 super geniuses of the two training camps. They could see through Lin Feng's combat strength with a single glance. The vast majority of them were either skilled in the concept Heavenly Tao, had extremely strong comprehension of the laws, or had reached large success in the chaos Heavenly Tao. At the very least, they were particularly outstanding in one aspect. There were very few people like Lin Feng, who cultivated in a messy way and relied on fusion. Lin Feng's fighting prowess was quite strong in the eyes of the cultivators in the 5 districts outside, and had already reached the peak of the Divine Master level. However, in the eyes of these 198 cultivators, he was just so. Most of them had absolute confidence in defeating Lin Feng. This included the 1,000 illusions Lang Mu in the arena. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One by one, the eyes lit up, instantly turning from 10 to 100. The 100 eyes had all sorts of colors. 1,000 illusions Lang Mu immediately executed the secret technique, 100 colors demonic illusions. It was dazzling like a kaleidoscope, causing people to be dazzled. The power of the 1,000 illusion gem tree's secret technique was related to the number of eyes used. The more eyes one used, the more powerful the illusion would be. Break! Lin Feng's willpower was tyrannical, and he broke 1,000 illusions Lang Mu's illusion almost instantly. The latter quickly retreated, but his reaction was also extremely fast. The weapon in his hand instantly split into 100 pieces, shattering into pieces like a rain of needles. Chi! 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 100 eyes, 100 needles to control. 1,000 illusions Lang Mu was not only good at illusions, but he was also good at controlling treasures. This was his talent ability. However, just as Lin Feng had estimated, the ability to control treasures had high requirements for a Heavenly Tao treasure, but the actual combat zone did not allow for a Heavenly Tao treasure. In this aspect, 1,000 illusions Lang Mu was at a disadvantage. In the survival zone, with the control of a peak Heavenly Tao treasure, he could have defeated Lin Feng long ago. Rumble. The mega avalanche collapsed directly. Lin Feng ignored 1,000 illusions Lang Mu's attack and countered it with attack. It was as fast as lightning. This was because Lin Feng knew clearly that it was foolish to waste time with his opponent. His opponent's strength was above his. Only by being fast would he have a chance to win. Damn it. 1,000 illusions Lang Mu widened the distance. This time, it was 200 eyes that lit up. Lin Feng's body slightly paused, and he was slightly affected. However, he quickly broke through it again, and the attacks fell like a storm. Pung, pung, pung. 1,000 illusions Lang Mu was in a difficult situation. He was not good at defense, and he did not have any defensive treasures in the actual combat zone. Facing Lin Feng's relentless attacks, 1,000 illusions Lang Mu could only control his weapon to counterattack and retreat continuously. This guy's willpower is so strong. I have to use the Thousand Realms Great Illusion to have a chance to win. Thousand Illusions, Lang Mu thought. However, his opponent was too tight, and he did not have a chance to use it. He could quickly use many secret techniques, but his opponent could break through them instantly. He did not care at all. Damn human! Thousand Illusions Lang Mu was very unhappy. In the first round, he had encountered a ruthless scum, which made him very embarrassed. He originally wanted to win the first round cleanly and win the first victory for the DSI training camp. Who would have thought that it would develop into this situation? Fight! Thousand Illusions Lang Mu had already used all his strength. He took Lin Feng's attack head-on, and the weapon in his hand pierced through Lin Feng's defense like a storm. He was also forced back. Although they were both injured, at least they had pulled the distance apart. Enduring the pain, the 999 eyes on Thousand Illusions Lang Mu's body all lit up. His face revealed a lofty expression, and he instantly erupted. The strongest Thousand Realms Great Illusion was used. Thousand Illusions Lang Mu had used this ultimate move to kill countless experts of the Hidden Saint training camp in the survival zone. But this time, it was like a mirror shattering. The illusion created by each eye was instantly broken. The biggest drawback of the illusion type was revealed. Facing an opponent with extremely strong willpower, the upper limit of the illusion type was not high, and the lower limit was also very low. Break for me. Lin Feng's eyes were clear, and his willpower broke through the Thousand Realms Great Illusion in an instant. Lin Feng's eyes flashed with incomparable firmness and perseverance. The War Saber Diin made the Great Avalanche concept even more solid and majestic. The power of the universe crashed down. No! Thousand Illusions Lang Mu roared in his heart. However, after his Thousand Realms Great Illusion was broken, not only did his strength suffer a setback, but his confidence was also greatly affected. Facing the majestic power of the Great Avalanche, he could no longer continue. Soon, he was killed and turned into a ray of light, disappearing from the duel arena. Congratulations to newcomer number 8484 for advancing to the second round of the roulette battle. The newcomer is rewarded with double the combat field cultivation time of 100 years. The voice of the top artificial intelligence sounded in his ear. Lin Feng was slightly surprised, but then he laughed. A pleasant surprise. He knew that the roulette battle did not reward Hidden Saint points, but he did not expect that there would be a combat field cultivation reward. The newcomer had double the 100 years, which was quite good. Chapter 2450. He won. He really won? The cultivators in the Hidden Elder Training Camp were stunned by the sudden news. Looking at the screen, they found it hard to believe that Lin Feng, a newbie, could defeat the super powerhouse of the DSI training camp, Lang Mu Thousand Illusions. Lang Mu Thousand Illusions was ranked 88th in the overall ranking of the two training camps. Haha, Lin Feng is so strong. Yeah, his attack and battle intent are not any worse than the DSI training camp. I didn't expect him to win. Those guys in the DSI training camp must be mad. They really think that our Hidden Elder training camp is meat on the chopping block. In the 5 regions, all the cultivators were beaming with joy. They were not willing to accept the defeat of the newbie king, but now their frowns were smoothed out. The outstanding performance of the newbie Lin Feng was like a shot in the heart of every cultivator in the Hidden Elder training camp, including those who were about to participate in the roulette battle. More or less, they were somewhat afraid of the DSI training camp. After all, the defeats in every era were still vivid in their minds. But now a newbie had won so desperately. What was there to be afraid of? Fight! After Lin Feng, the Hidden Elder training camp's roulette battle experts began to fight. Their morale was high. However, the gap in strength was still very obvious. Although they were united, they still lost 68 out of 100 roulette battles, which was more than 2/3 of the total number. Especially the 3 king versus king rounds, they lost all of them. Whether it was the top or the average combat strength, the Hidden Elder training camp was completely defeated. The only one who won against the DSI training camp was this era. There were 2 super newbies in the Hidden Elder training camp. That's enough. Yes, 5 more wins than the last era. 32 wins is already the best record in the last 10 years. In the Hidden Elder City, the reverends in charge of the combat zone spoke one after another. Losing was within their expectations. Therefore, the reverends didn't care too much. At least there was a clear improvement in this era. Not to mention, the deicide training camp had always followed the elite policy, so there weren't many reverends. Although the 7th Mercenary Alliance was not as good as the deicide training camp, the cultivators in the training camp were not worse than the other 3 giants. After the first round ended, the second round began. After the first round of cruel competition, the second round of battle was even more intense. As expected, Lin Feng was eliminated. After all, his combat strength had indeed reached the limit. Although defeating Thousand Illusions Lang Mu did not rely on luck, it just so happened that their abilities countered each other. Facing most opponents who were good at close combat, Lin Feng was still lacking in this aspect. It doesn't matter. This is only the first era. After this battle, Lin Feng was even more confident. In the next era, his combat ability would definitely be stronger than it was now. Even if he couldn't comprehend the exquisite heavenly Tao like Huang Qinyan, he would definitely be able to comprehend the small success heavenly Tao of chaos and fuse it. Then, he would create an even stronger saber technique. At that time, he would have the ability to sprint to the top 25 in the roulette battle. At least there's a consolation prize. Lin Feng began to cultivate for 100 years in the combat domain. The newbie reward was double, allowing him to cultivate for another 100 years. This consolation reward was actually more valuable than 1,000 hidden revered points. In just 37 years, Lin Feng had comprehended the small success heavenly Tao of chaos. He had not tried to fuse it. Fusing it in the combat domain was a waste of time. The best way to use it in the combat domain was to comprehend the realm and heavenly Tao and learn various saber techniques and sword techniques. He continued to comprehend the large success heavenly Tao of chaos. In terms of difficulty, the heavenly Tao of chaos was roughly similar to the heavenly Tao of intent. However, Lin Feng knew that with the perfect chaos body, he would have an easier time on the path of the heavenly Tao of chaos compared to other cultivators. Moreover, comprehending the heavenly Tao of chaos in the combat domain was better than comprehending the heavenly Tao of intent. He could enter the heavenly Tao of intent to comprehend it and also create new saber techniques. However, the best place to comprehend the heavenly Tao of chaos was in the combat domain, or Diamond District. Lin Feng had already decided on his next target, the Diamond District, where a large number of demon and monster race experts gathered. However, this was not urgent, and he would have to wait for an era before he could change to another district. 100 years passed. Lin Feng's realm in the heavenly Tao of chaos had reached a higher level. He had already touched the edge of the large success heavenly Tao of chaos. He was not much inferior to Yan Handy, and his combat ability was stronger, because Lin Feng had the perfect chaos body, while Yan Handy only had an ordinary chaos body. Lin Feng did not care much about the results of the combat domain. The 3 defeats of king against king were enough to show that the current hidden revered training camp did not have the ability to challenge the Godslayer training camp's monopoly. In the final roulette battle, the hidden revered training camp would definitely be defeated. The winner would definitely be the Godslayer training camp. After all, in a real battle, there was no such thing as luck or luck. There is no need to rush in the dangerous heaven region. It will only be a waste of time if I go there before I have enough strength. Besides, I won't get many Qian revered points. Knowing the importance of Qian revered points, Lin Feng did not want to waste them. The completion rate was very important. 6911 Qian revered points. Go and squander them. Lin Feng smiled as he stepped into one of the top training facilities. With enough capital and confidence, he could strengthen himself in all aspects. Prepare for the survival domain. Look, isn't that the super newcomer Lin Feng? Wow, he went to the training facilities again. It seems like he hasn't stopped in the past 3,000 years. He has been training in all the training facilities. How many Qian revered points would he need to spend? Who knows, but he shouldn't lack Qian revered points. Newcomers in the combat domain get double the points. And with Lin Feng's strength, he can definitely go to the hunting domain. Plus the dangerous heaven region. No, Lin Feng seems to still be at the 35th checkpoint. Yes, I checked a while ago. Very smart. Lin Feng doesn't lack Qian revered points, so why would he go to the dangerous heaven region? When he gets stronger, he can go there. The completion rate will be higher, and he will get more Qian revered points. I'm so jealous. He has so many Qian revered points. If I had that many, I would be in the top 10,000 of the training camp already. Fisk, if you have the ability, why don't you enter the combat domain roulette battle too? Lin Feng relies on his strength to earn Qian revered points. I'm just saying, it's really infuriating when you compare yourself to others. My brother Zhao is considered a top super genius in the Olei Star field, but he became a passerby the moment he entered the training camp. He really can't take it. Lin Feng's fame spread like wildfire, especially when he defeated the God Slayer training camp in the roulette battle, which made many cultivators admire him. Moreover, he was low-key and humble. Although he was ranked second on the newcomer ranking, it was still the same. There were many envious people in the 5 regions, but there were also many admirers. The current Lin Feng was not only ranked second on the newcomer ranking, but also in the top 1,000 of the overall ranking. Quite outstanding. Chapter 2451. Lin Feng, I will catch up to you. I will pay you back 10 times for what you did to me in the survival domain. In the training facility, Yan Handy was madly cultivating. Yan Handy, the prince of the Devil clan, was incomparably arrogant. That day, he was directly eliminated by Lin Feng in the duel area, which left an indelible scar in his heart. Now, he had another target besides Huang Qinyan, and that was Lin Feng. His hostility and competition was even stronger than Huang Qinyan's. If he lost, he would win it back. Yan Handy was never a demon who couldn't accept defeat. According to the information, my current battle strength should be equal to Lin Feng. If I maintain this speed of improvement, I will be able to surpass him before the survival domain. His realm and comprehension are indeed slightly better than mine, but my bloodline and control of heavenly Tao treasures are definitely above his. Man Jiang waved his 4 swords, his eyes full of light. At this time, his ranking on the newcomer ranking list had already surpassed Yan Handy, occupying the 3rd place. With abundant information and analysis, Man Jiang would always occupy a very high ranking on the ranking list. That day, the combat domain was not his strong point. I, Man Jiang, am determined to be the strongest newcomer. His strange eyes flashed. Man Jiang was full of fighting spirit. The newcomers were all cultivating hard. Different from the seniors in the training camp, the newcomers, especially outstanding newcomers like Yan Handy and Man Jiang, often had abundant potential revered points and could train crazily in the first era to improve their strength. As for Lin Feng and Huang Qinyan, they had even more potential revered points. The first era was the critical period for all newcomers to improve their strength, and also the period of time when they improved the fastest. Yan Handy was the same, Man Jiang was the same, and Lin Feng was the same. Boom, boom, turning the blade into a fist, Lin Feng cultivated hard and comprehended the heavenly Tao of chaos. Using his real body to attack, the power and comprehension of the heavenly Tao of the perfect Handan body was naturally much stronger than an ordinary body. Especially when Lin Feng temporarily abandoned the blade to a fist, his comprehension was even more profound. There was only one goal: complete the heavenly Tao of chaos. The perfect Handan body and the chaos strength heavenly Tao are a true combination that can yield twice the result with half the effort. Lin Feng could clearly feel the increase in his strength. It was calculated in years, and every year there would be a small increase. If I had such strength during the roulette battle, I could have won the second round. Lin Feng wasn't remorseful. He was convinced of his loss in the second round of the actual combat domain. His opponent was obviously stronger than him, but he had made significant progress in the past 3,000 years. He was no longer the ignorant person he used to be. It was not just the intent heavenly Tao and the chaos heavenly Tao. This included his mastery of pinnacle heavenly Tao treasures, his comprehension of the laws of light and darkness, his compatibility with the war saber imperial concealment, and so on. The survival zone was different from the combat zone. It was a real fight, and those without strength were destined to be eliminated. 69 11 Qian revered points, 28 50 Qian revered points over 3,000 years, and some reward from training facilities. As of now, Lin Feng still had 4,061 Qian revered points. It was quite strong. This was the importance of the actual combat zone. If he hadn't wantonly collected Qian revered points in the actual combat zone, Lin Feng would have been exposed. How could he be so calm and focused on cultivation? It's time to go to the dangerous heavenly region. Lin Feng looked at the time and headed to the dangerous heavenly region. The Qian Revere training camp was the last time the dangerous heavenly region would be open for 8,000 to 9,000 years in this era. For Lin Feng, who aspired to get a high score on the list, he couldn't miss it. Moreover, he had stayed in the training facilities for too long. He also wanted to move his body. He wanted to recomprehend the nature heavenly Tao and create a stronger saber technique. This was the last time the dangerous heavenly region would be open for him as a newcomer in this era. Universe Zone. Lin Feng is really not in a hurry. His ranking on the newcomer ranking list has fallen to 4th place. Yes, Yin Handy and Man Jiang have caught up again. The gap between the Qian revered points on the newcomer ranking list in the first era is huge. Is Lin Feng really not in a hurry? Or is he confident and wants to show off in the survival domain? The survival domain is not that simple. The powerhouses in the Godslayer training camp are all like wolves and tigers. He will be killed if he is careless. No matter how confident Lin Feng is in himself, I don't think he will put all his hopes on the survival domain. Maybe some genius powerhouses like to use absolute adversity to force themselves. I think Lin Feng is one of them. His success in the combat domain may have made him overestimate himself. The survival domain and the combat domain are not on the same level. He will cry when the time comes. Lin Feng had not shown up for a long time. Naturally, he attracted a lot of attention, especially when he had appeared out of nowhere in the combat domain, and now he had disappeared without a trace. It was hard not to be curious. Which newcomer did not care about the newcomer ranking list? The rewards were much worse. Moreover, the dangerous heavenly region also had a newcomer ranking list. Lin Feng had just reached level 35. It was definitely not his true strength. In the eyes of the cultivators, Lin Feng's strength was at least level 50 in the dangerous heavenly region. The dangerous heavenly region was the most direct indicator of one's strength. For example, Huang Qinyan, who is currently the strongest, was level 60 in the dangerous heavenly region. Man Jiang and Yin Handy were both level 55. In addition, there were many newcomers in the combat domain who had reached level 50. In the Godslayer training camp, one could not relax for a moment because these people were all elites of various astral realms. If one did not advance, one would retreat. Even Huang Qinyan would not always be high and mighty. Some newcomers might be late bloomers, some had buried their potential deep, and some had not yet shown their talent. There were too many possibilities. At this time, Lin Feng was deep in the dangerous heavenly region. Different from other cultivators, Lin Feng had a special feeling for the dangerous heavenly region. He knew that it was not only a place to earn hidden revered points, but also a rare place to comprehend. The 7th God realm had dense heavenly Tao laws. It could be found anywhere. The dangerous heavenly region was blessed by nature. It had rendered the heavenly Tao extremely pure. It was too wasteful to take risks just to get a score and pass the dangerous heavenly region. Perhaps it was a waste to choose one place and comprehend the natural heavenly region continuously. After all, the further one went, the more difficult it would be for the heavenly region to appear in the same place. However, there were gains and losses. It was up to the individual to choose. Lin Feng's mega avalanche had been raised to the extreme. Even if it was a level 35 mega avalanche, the heavenly Tao of concept was only at minute subtlety. He could not comprehend any exquisite concepts. If he wanted to improve it, he would have to create new saber techniques and comprehend new heavenly Tao concept. Minute subtlety was not where Lin Feng wanted to stay. He could not put all his eggs in one basket. Now that the mixed strength heavenly Tao had not reached phenomenal success, the improvement of the heavenly Tao of concept could not be delayed. Lin Feng had entered the world of concept many times, but what he really needed now was to experience it firsthand. The powerful heavenly Tao of concept above exquisite. Chapter 2452. Landslides, tsunamis, storms. Lin Feng tried again and again. He did not choose directly like he did in the beginning of the mega avalanche. Now, he had a higher vision and experience, so he could choose the saber technique that was most suitable for him. Level 36, level 38, level 40, Lin Feng kept leveling up in the dangerous natural region. The completion rate was quite high. After all, his current combat power could easily pass the power coefficient below level 50. Last one. When I reach level 41, I must choose one of them. Lin Feng was shocked. The further he progressed in the dangerous natural region, the more difficult it would be. He was afraid that he would not be strong enough to comprehend it. Although he did not want to compromise, he could not reach the sky in one step. He had to find the most suitable natural region with the deepest comprehension. Even if it was just a stepping stone, it would be quite good. Oh, it's quite beautiful here. Suddenly, Lin Feng stepped into a beautiful area. The landscape was picturesque, and the sky was like a curtain covering the ground. Together with the calm lake and forest, it was like a natural work of art. It was quiet and tranquil. Taking a deep breath, Lin Feng enjoyed the freshness of nature. He felt as if he could touch the blue sky when he reached out his hand. He was integrated into this perfect world. That kind of peace in his heart made him very satisfied. This was also a part of the dangerous natural region. What would be the natural region here? Lin Feng was also very curious. According to his understanding of the dangerous natural region, the natural regions were not only natural phenomena. There were also some horrors that existed in the universe, secret realms, and even some man-made traps. There would be natural regions in every place. There shouldn't be any natural phenomena here. It's unlikely that the universe's secret realms are scary. It should be man-made traps. Lin Feng was slightly surprised. He shook his head and was ready to leave. He did not want to waste the level 41 dangerous natural region on traps. Perhaps he could get a high completion rate because of this, but it would not help him improve his strength at all. Natural phenomena were what he was pursuing. Secondly, the horrors of the universe's secret realms were often not seen by him. It was very likely that he would be inspired when creating saber techniques. However, sometimes things did not go as planned. When you wanted it to come, it would not come. When you did not want it to come, it would come. Swish! The originally clear blue sky instantly changed color. It was like a person who was suddenly happy, suddenly had a face full of anger. Lin Feng, who was just about to leave, helplessly stopped. After experiencing so many dangers, he naturally knew what had happened. He had triggered a level 41 hazardous heavenly region. It's going to go to waste. Although Lin Feng lamented, he had already made preparations in an instant. Since he couldn't avoid it, then he would strive for a high completion rate. It was better than nothing. At the very least, he wouldn't waste any Qian revered points. Buzz! Sizzle! There seemed to be an endless magnetic field in the sky, causing the surrounding space to change. It was as if there were electric snakes appearing, shattering the space and destroying the atmosphere of Ning Yi's painting. What is it? Lin Feng was also curious. Why did it seem like a natural phenomenon? But what natural phenomenon could there be in such a picturesque place? Just as he was thinking, suddenly, a pure white light beam came from the distance in a straight line. Its speed had completely exceeded the speed of light. It tore through the space like a sharp arrow, piercing through Lin Feng's heart. Swish! Lin Feng, who was already prepared, easily dodged. His eyes slightly lit up. As soon as he dodged, another pure white light beam came through. The attack was not fancy at all. It was absolute speed. It tore through the space. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. A straight line was the fastest way to attack. Swish, 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 swish. The white light beam kept attacking. Lin Feng quickly dodged. It was as if Lin Feng had entered a training facility. Although the dense light beams were fast and powerful, they were still far away. Moreover, they were only at level 41 in the dangerous natural region. For Lin Feng, it was not too difficult to dodge them. So it's Aurora. A name appeared in Lin Feng's mind. The universe Aurora didn't only exist in natural phenomena. It also existed in various universe secret realms. It had its own universe law and power. Legend had it that the strongest universe Aurora could even kill knights. This beautiful area also had a beautiful aurora. On the surface of Lin Feng's body, the lines of light vibrated slightly. With the godly pattern of light, Lin Feng resonated with everything about light. The process of dodging was also a process of comprehension. His gaze locked onto the sky of aurora. It was a clear concept of the heavenly Tao. With the rhythm of the godly pattern of light, his comprehension became clearer. Everything is destined. I'll name the new blade technique Aura. Lin Feng smiled with satisfaction. At this moment, he knew that he had found the new blade technique that he had been searching for Aura. Lin Feng was a simple and direct person. Once he found a target, he wouldn't hesitate anymore. Instead, he would take action. His powerful execution ability made him successful in every endeavor. From level 41 onwards, the comprehension of the Aurora Saber technique would appear once every 20 years or so. It was a level 41 power coefficient, and it was a linear speed Aurora. The level 42 power coefficient was an arc-shaped Aurora. Although the speed was reduced, the arc of light was impossible to guard against. When it evolved into a sword move, it was naturally more suitable for combat than a linear sword technique that pursued pure speed. Level 43 power coefficient was a straight line and archetype Aurora. The alternating attacks allowed the blade technique to have a range of speed changes. The initiative of the attack was in the hands of the user. It was sometimes fast and sometimes slow, sometimes strong and sometimes weak. Level 48 power coefficient was a single-point explosion type, Aurora. Every attack would condense countless Aurora's explosion. The attack was condensed on a single point. Aurora's light was condensed to the extreme, and the instant explosion was even more terrifying. Level 49 power coefficient was Aurora's crown. The crown was like a hat. Aurora turned into a huge crown and enveloped Lin Feng. Countless aurora shot out from all directions from the huge crown. There were straight lines and arcs, tearing and hurricanes. All kinds of aurora appeared, mixed with control and attack. It was terrifying. Level 50 power coefficient was Aurora's black hole. Countless aurora appeared at the same time and exploded instantly. All kinds of Aurora's horror accumulated to the extreme in an instant. The entire space, even the flow of particles, collapsed into a black hole, swallowing everything. Boom! Lin Feng lay on the ground, unable to fight anymore. The level 50 Aurora's black hole was comparable to other level 60 natural hazards. If he hadn't improved a lot in the past 3,000 years, he wouldn't have been able to resist it. But even so, he had used up the last of his strength to barely block the extremely powerful Aurora's black hole. He had reached his limit. Chapter 2453. There was an uproar in the hidden Zune training camp. Many cultivators noticed that Lin Feng's ranking had returned to the top 1,000 of the training camp. At the same time, he had returned to second place from the 4th level, surpassing Yin Handy and Man Jiang again. Although Yin Handy and Man Jiang's levels in the dangerous natural region were higher than Lin Feng's, and they had accumulated a lot of points in the hunting zone. But in the combat zone, Lin Feng's score had far surpassed the two. Now that he had reached level 50 in the dangerous natural region, the score given by the top AI had increased greatly. Naturally, he had returned to his original position. Originally, after the combat zone ended, Lin Feng's ranking had reached the top 1,000 of the training camp. But because he had been cultivating in seclusion for 3,000 years, his score hadn't increased much. But his strength wouldn't decrease because of that. On the contrary, Lin Feng's combat strength had far surpassed that of 3,000 years ago. In the top 1,000 of the combat zone, he had passed level 60 in the dangerous natural region. In the hidden zone training camp, there was a general level of combat strength, peak divine Lord Invincible. Basically, all the cultivators in the top 100 of the combat zone were peak divine Lord Invincible. Only Lin Feng was an exception. But now Lin Feng had indeed reached this level. The 7th Hidden Zone Conference was being held in the Xingfeng astral realm. The 5 giants and other forces had gathered the strongest newcomers in the past 100 years. Among them, the strongest was the super genius recruited by the Universe Bank 10 years ago, Wu Yun. His strength was close to peak divine Lord Invincible. Of course, no one knew how strong Lin Feng was now, except for the sovereigns in the Hidden Zone City, because he had only reached level 50 in the dangerous natural region. This level was normally the peak divine lord limit in the Hidden Zone training camp. Lin Feng's true combat strength has completely surpassed Yin Handy and Manjiang, Huang Zun said. When the combat zone ended, his combat strength wasn't as good as Yin Handy and Manjiang, Huang Zun said. How can it be the same? More than 3,000 years have passed. For those true geniuses, 3,000 years is enough to increase their combat strength. Nia Huang Zun said, "You know how Lin Feng was when he first entered the Hidden Zone training camp?" Huang Zun nodded. Back then, Lin Feng's combat strength wasn't even close. After the actual combat zone ended, the deputy region governors who were in charge of the actual combat zone became idle and began to track and analyze the outstanding newcomers. Huang Qinyin, Lin Feng, Yin Handy, and Manjiang were naturally their main targets of observation. These observations had to be reported to Sovereign Buki because they were very important. But Zun Huang Zun. It's not the same. Their basic conditions are too different. If Lin Feng is given another era, he will definitely surpass Huang Qinyan. I don't think so. Lin Feng's potential is good, but potential is still potential. At the beginning of the improvement period, I think it's because Lin Feng came from a remote astral boundary that he could improve so quickly. But to surpass Huang Qinyan, I don't think he can do it, at least not at this stage. Moreover, don't you think he's practicing too many things? Huang Zun discussed animatedly. They had been tracking Lin Feng's cultivation for some time. Indeed, Lin Feng's cultivation was very varied and complicated. For a newbie with potential who aspired to become a venerable one, focusing on the path that he was best at was the right thing to do. Huang Zun said, "After all, Huang Qinyin comes from a prestigious family and her bloodline is noble. It's a bit unfair to compete now. When she becomes a venerable, it'll be the real beginning. By then, we'll know who's stronger and who's weaker." With her current combat power, although Huang Qinyin had only reached level 60 in the dangerous natural domain, Huang Zun knew that she had the ability to reach level 65 in the dangerous natural domain. As a super newbie that appeared once in a millennium, as long as Huang Qinyin performed well in the survival domain, her final ranking in the training camp of the first millennium would be, he would definitely enter the top 100. The top 100 had the battle prowess of a venerable. In comparison, the current Lin Feng was still quite a distance away. Let's wait and see. I feel that in the next era or the era after that, Huang Qinyin might be ranked first in both training camps. I think so too. Although the super newbie of the DSI training camp, is strong, I still think Huang Qinyan's talent is more amazing. She deserves the title of Super Genius of the Millennium. We've been suppressed by the DSI training camp for too long. How many years has it been since we tasted the taste of first place? Haha, it's been too long. I'm tired of seeing those bastards in the DSI training camp acting all high and mighty. This time, let's see how Huang Qinyin can hold her heads high for us. Lin Feng, Yin Handy, and Manjiang also have the possibility of entering the top 10 in both training camps in the future. In a few eras, when this batch of newbies grows up, it'll be great, Huang Zun said with a smile. They had been suppressed by the Deicide training camp for more than 100 eras. Everyone was one of 5 giants. Who didn't have a temper? Dangerous natural domain, from level 35 to level 50. Lin Feng obtained 1836 hidden venerable points. It wasn't little and definitely exceeded the average standard of the hidden venerable training camp. However, it wasn't much because Lin Feng had the ability to obtain more. From level 35 to level 43, Lin Feng's completion rate was very high. But as he continued to farm Aurora, the difficulty began to increase and the completion rate gradually decreased. At level 50, its power was comparable to other level 60 natural domains. At the limit of Lin Feng's strength, the completion rate was naturally very low. However, it was enough. 58 and 97. Lin Feng looked at the Qian revered points in the Qian revered Luo crystal. He didn't care if it was a few hundred more or a few hundred less. If he could get a complete set of Aurora Intent Heavenly Tao in the Dangerous Heaven region, he would be willing to pay a few thousand Qian revered points. If you lose something, you gain something. First, I'll go to the perfect formation of time for a few hundred years. Then I'll go to the intent world. Lin Feng had a clear idea. The perfect formation of time could perfectly use time. 10 times of Aurora, 10 different types of intent world could be used to create 10 different types of saber techniques. The intent world was the perfection realm Dao that improved the saber techniques to perfection. Of course, this period of time required a lot of hidden venerable points because the intent world was very expensive. But he could afford it. His goal was to create a saber technique stronger than the Great Avalanche before entering the survival domain. That way, he would be able to increase his strength and have a stronger survivability in the life and death battle. Thousands of gold would come back again. There was no need to save hidden venerable points now. The hidden venerable points in the dangerous natural domain and the hunting domain weren't much. The efficiency was far lower than the combat domain and the survival domain. Now that he was a newbie, the hidden venerable points in the combat domain and the survival domain were double. This kind of advantage would only come once. Chapter 2454. 9,000 years. The Hidden Saint Training Camp closed for the last time in the dangerous heavenly region, and the treasure region opened for the last time. A group of cultivators gave it their all for the final ranking. They entered the treasure region and even the hunting region to increase their overall strength. They were preparing for the final trial in the survival region. Most of the newcomers didn't have a death immortal puppet. 500 hidden revered points for one. Not everyone could afford it, and not everyone was willing to do so. There were also many geniuses who purposely didn't exchange for the death immortal puppet to force themselves to be at their strongest. The newcomer ranking was in chaos again. Yan Handy's level in the dangerous natural region increased from 55 to 59. She surpassed Lin Feng on the newcomer ranking and took the second place. Minyan's level in the dangerous natural region also increased from 55 to 57. However, she didn't surpass Lin Feng and was still in fourth place. 5 newcomers appeared below. They were all level 55 in the dangerous natural region. It was very lively. There were a total of 95 newcomers above level 50 in the dangerous natural region. It was quite shocking. This meant that they all had the battle power of a peak god lord. Lin Feng was also one of them. However, he was still at level 50 and was only in the upper middle of level 50. This meant that he didn't have the highest number of hidden revered points. Actually, Lin Feng is only good in the combat domain. His battle power isn't high. Yeah, there's some luck in the combat domain. The dangerous natural region's level won't lie. After all, most people go there themselves. Lin Feng has plenty of time to fight for the newcomer ranking. If he can reach a higher level, there's no reason for him to stop at level 50. Level 50 and 51 are different. It's not that easy to break through. Plus, Lin Feng didn't get many hidden revered points in the dangerous natural region. If you don't believe me, you could take a look at the dangerous natural region ranking. There are many cultivators who are like dragons in the combat domain and turn back into insects in the survival domain. Lin Feng is probably one of them. There's no way around it. He's just a human. Human cultivators are strong because of their large numbers and high comprehension. They have a lot of potential in all areas. However, rather than saying that they're multifaceted, it's better to say that they're mediocre and ordinary. Yeah, the human bloodline is too ordinary. Look at Huang Qinyan, Yin Handi, Man Jiang. Which one of them doesn't have a noble bloodline? There's nothing to fight for in the newcomers' ranking. Huang Qinyan is way ahead, and she'll definitely get the first place. She's already the first in the dangerous heavenly region. Which newcomer can shake the level 65 ranking? Although Pu Kiki is level 75 now, she was only level 65 at the start of this era. As the ranking of the dangerous heavenly region was settled, the strength of the practitioners became clear. The ranking in the dangerous natural region was very important to both the ranking list and the newcomer ranking list. Because there were a lot of scores in it, there was more than enough time in the dangerous natural region. Of course, every bit of progress counted. After all, these were all honorable points. And this was basically used as a rough estimate of the combat strength of the survival zone. Therefore, Lin Feng's current rating was very unremarkable. He was only number 66 in the dangerous heavenly region's newcomer ranking list. There was a big gap between him and number 3 on the newcomers ranking list. Therefore, the rumors that Lin Feng was good at the combat zone, but had an ordinary bloodline talent and was not good at the survival zone were not baseless. But to be honest, even if Lin Feng was only level 50 in the dangerous heavenly region, being number 66 in the newcomers ranking list was already a very good result. If a newcomer could be number 66 in a previous era, he would definitely enter the top 1,000 in the training camp in the next era or the one after that. There was also a chance for him to enter the top 100. The main reason was that Lin Feng was a human. Moreover, his performance in the combat zone was too dazzling, which imperceptibly raised the other practitioners' expectations of him. Of course, Lin Feng's combat strength was not limited to this. However, the dangerous heavenly region's rating and ranking were not as important to Lin Feng as the saber technique Aurora. I've almost mastered the first move of Aurora, absolute speed. Lin Feng raised his saber and slashed down. Rays of straight white light burst out under the influence of the way of the heavenly Tao of minute subtlety. I haven't mastered the second move of Aurora, crescent moon. The second move of the Aurora saber technique. The arc was perfect like a crescent moon. Therefore, Lin Feng named it Aurora Crescent Moon. The left and right arcs could be controlled at will, and even the upper and lower arcs could catch the opponent off guard. The white light flashed like a beautiful crescent moon. It was much more beautiful than the first move, Aurora, absolute speed. The third move of Aurora, full moon. The fourth move of Aurora, Viper. The fifth move of Aurora, Mad Dragon. Lin Feng had comprehended all of them and improved them in the way of the heavenly Tao. However, the creation of the last 5 moves of Aurora was much more difficult. After all, the 5 levels of the dangerous heaven domain were 1 level. The last 5 moves were from level 46 to level 50. Naturally, the way of the heavenly Tao was more profound than the first 5 moves. Moreover, the natural phenomenon of Aurora was more complicated. Before entering the survival realm, I must perfectly master the second move, Aurora, Crescent Moon. Otherwise, my attack method will be too simple if I only rely on Aurora, absolute speed. From the third to the 5th moves, the prerequisite is to master the second move, the fusion of the way of the heavenly Tao of intent. Now, he had to integrate the way of the heavenly Tao of mixed strength and the 9 levels of light and darkness. The reason why he valued Aurora was the fusion of the 9 levels of light and darkness. After all, it was a type of light. Lin Feng could not only use it with ease, but it could also strengthen its power. The survival realm is much more difficult than the combat realm. From the beginning, I will mix with the experts of the deicide training camp and fight indiscriminately. Not only do I have to be careful of the deicide training camp's cultivators, but I also have to be careful of the cultivators in my own training camp. My current ranking in the DSI training camp is 975. That's about my level. Although there aren't many cultivators stronger than me, many of them don't move alone. Moreover, the average strength of the DSI training camp is much higher than ours. Both ranked 975, the DSI training camp's cultivators would definitely be stronger than him. Moreover, he had no experience in the survival realm. I'll make sure to enter the top 10,000. Lin Feng would be lying if he said he had no ambition. His results in the combat realm made him have high hopes for the survival realm. He even wanted to catch up with Huang Qinyan's newcomer ranking and become the top newcomer. Glory was one thing, but the most important thing was the first place on the newcomer ranking. The reward was 5,000 Qianzun points. The second place was only 3,000 Qianzun points. The third place was 2,000 Qianzun points. If I can enter the top 1,000 and Huang Qinyan fails, I might be able to surpass her. Lin Feng had a desire. He hadn't experienced the survival realm, and neither had Huang Qinyan. There was still 1,000 years left. He still had time to improve. Definitely. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he continued to research and create new moves. His goal was the first place on the newcomer ranking, to get 5,000 Qianzun points. Chapter 2455. The last 900 years. In the Hidden Zune training camp, the competition was intense. The training facilities were overcrowded. Only a small number of people entered the treasure zone to earn points. Most of the cultivators were sharpening their swords to prepare for the survival zone. In every era, the final and most crucial battle would take place. The most direct collision between the two training camps. Every time, a large number of talented newcomers would die in the survival zone. But at the same time, many cultivators would emerge from the flames of war, be reborn, and even become venerables. A battle of life and death was the simplest and most direct way to break through. Either die or live. Trout Dragon, Taigen Decidua, Pu Kiki looked at the ranking list of the dangerous zone and then looked at the total score list of the two training camps. He felt depressed. Since he entered the camp, these two mountains have been suppressing him. Even now, as the strongest cultivator in the Hidden Zune training camp, he still couldn't climb over these two mountains. They were firmly in the top 2 of all the rankings. 1. Trout Dragon, number 10, level 90 in the dangerous zone. 2. Taigen Decidua, number 1, level 89 in the dangerous zone. 3. Binxi, number 88, level 85 in the dangerous zone. 7. Hanli Dao Wang, number 444, level 76 in the dangerous zone. 8. Pu Kiki, number 12, level 75 in the dangerous zone. 10. Ishio, number 19770, level 75 in the dangerous zone. The ranking of the dangerous heavenly region was almost set, although the God-slaying training camp still had 900 years to refresh. The Hidden Zune training camp was running out of time in this era. Compared to the beginning of this era, the gap was further widened. Although Pu Ki's score had increased by 10 levels, from 65 to 75, Trout Dragon and Taigen Decidua had also increased by 10 levels. Moreover, their increase of 10 levels was much more difficult than Pu Ki's. Level 80 in the dangerous zone was a milestone. It meant that the cultivator was as strong as a venerables. It also meant that they could get the ultimate heavenly path treasure as a great gift. But it was difficult to get. Zhongyin, who ranked first in the last era, was only level 77 in the dangerous zone. Pu Kiki tried to reach level 76, but failed. Maybe I can get it next year. Pu Kiki looked at the top 10 rankings of the two training camps. Ishio had appeared out of nowhere in this era. In the last era, his total score was only around 1,000, but in this era, he had already reached the 5th place in the ranking list. He was ranked 2nd in the dangerous natural region of the Hidden Supreme training camp. The Hidden Zune training camp only occupied 2 of the top 10 spots in the dangerous heaven region. Similarly, there were only 2 spots on the ranking board. It could be said that the Godslayer training camp had completely crushed them. As the top scorer of the Hidden Zune training camp, Pu Kiki had to leave the Hidden Zune training camp in this era. This was the rule, and he didn't plan on staying any longer, because as long as he wanted to, he could break through and become a venerable at any time. The bottleneck had been crossed, a task that surpasses the difficulty of the Godslayer training camp. Leave it to the latecomers. Pu Kiki smiled in relief. He had tried his best, so there was nothing he could do if he couldn't complete it. There's a talent in the next era, or the super newcomer, Huang Qinyan. Pu Kiki smiled and continued with her cultivation. In the universe area, a fiery phoenix was dancing beautifully. Her sword technique was like a rainbow. Beautiful sword lights appeared in the void, carrying the pure phoenix fire and burning the exquisite heavenly Tao. Huang Qinyan, who was at level 65 in the dangerous heaven region, had perfect control of her bloodline and a peak heavenly Tao treasure. Although she wasn't good at strength, she had unparalleled talent and comprehension. Her battle strength had reached the level of a peak almighty. However, she had never stopped her footsteps. She was clear about her identity and the burden she carried. She wanted to restore the glory of her family. Mother, Qinyan will work harder. Huang Qinyan's beautiful face flashed with incomparable determination. Losing to Yiya in combat didn't make her lose confidence. Being the top newcomer of the Hidden Zune training camp didn't make her feel proud, because these were not important to Huang Qinyan. She only had one goal, and that was to become the strongest in the training camp. In the King Kong area, a demon man with half of his body red and the other half green was crazily cultivating. The muscles all over his body seemed to be exploding. The power of the chaos body was condensed to the limit. Every attack was like a star collapsing. I finally grasped it. This is the great success of the chaos heavenly Tao. Yin Handy screamed crazily and hysterically. After consuming countless hidden Zune points, he finally touched the edge of the great success of the chaos heavenly Tao and stepped over that step. He was ready to fight in the survival domain. Huang Qinyan, this prince is finally caught up to you. Human Lin Feng, we'll meet again in the survival domain. As the prince of the Yan Handy demon clan, Yan Handy had pride, but in the training camp, he was trampled again and again. First, he was thrown to the back of his mind by Huang Qinyan, then he was surpassed by Man Jiang, and then he was defeated by Lin Feng in the combat domain. To Yan Handy, it was an incomparable humiliation. Humiliation after humiliation stared at Yan Handy's arrogant self-esteem. Finally, he broke out of his cocoon and was reborn. I want all cultivators to know that I, Yan Handy, am the prince of the Yan Handy demon clan, is the true strongest newcomer. Time region, space region, and other regions. It wasn't just newcomers in the 5 regions. Every cultivator was preparing for the survival domain battle, because it would decide the final score, deciding whether they would stay or leave. Those in the top 100,000 would become level 1 geniuses. Those in the top 10,000 would become super geniuses and enjoy the treatment of super geniuses. Those in the top 100 will be taken in as disciples by the sovereigns. Those in the top 3 would become the focus of the 7th Mercenary Alliance. Not to mention the number 1. Every cultivator had their own goals and pursuits. For example, Wang's son, who was in the same region as Lin Feng, his goal was to enter the top 100 and be taken in as a disciple by the sovereigns. For example, Ka Bishing's goal was to enter the top 10,000 and become a super geniuses. As for Yuan Shiyu, he was working hard to enter the top 100,000 and give himself a perfect ending as a newcomer in the first era. At this moment, Lin Feng was also working hard. For the survival domain, to become the number 1 newcomer in this era, he spent a large amount of Qianzun points to enter one top-level training facility after another. Soul Control's Secret Palace, the training facility that used up the most Qianzun points. 100 Qianzun points, 20 years. The huge threshold and consumption of Qianzun points made all cultivators stop. But at this moment, there was a human youth who was bitterly training. He had already been in there for 100 years. Finally, I succeeded. Joyful laughter echoed within the Soul Control Secret Palace. Chapter 2456. Kunling Heart Arrow, Level 9. 9 soul arrows shot out at the same time, consuming 90% of his soul energy. Combined with his powerful soul energy, their power increased exponentially, enough to kill a high-level Divine Lord and severely injure a peak Divine Lord. This was the most direct soul attack. Compared to illusions, although soul attacks could kill 10,000 enemies and injure 8,000 oneself, there was an extremely high upper and lower limit. Lin Feng's soul energy was exceptionally strong, and he had a powerful will. With the help of a Chaos Supreme treasure like the 10,000 Origin Mustard Stone, he was much more terrifying than an ordinary soul cultivator's attack. Kunling Heart Arrow only has the power for one attack, but it's my trump card. Peak Divine Lords might be divided into the top Divine Lords, the Peak Divine Lords, and the Peak Divine Lords who are invincible, but this is only a difference in combat power. They are all at the same level of life. With my Kunling Heart Arrow and 90% of my soul energy, unless the cultivator has an exceptionally strong soul energy or has a soul defense supreme treasure, they will die without a doubt. A top-tier Heavenly Tao Supreme Treasure was almost negligible. Lin Feng had absolute confidence. This was because he had already completely mastered the Shattered Soul Kill Tome, a peak-tier Heavenly Tao treasure that was capable of soul attacks. Not only did it have the ability to strengthen soul attacks, but it also had the ability to destroy the opponent's soul defense supreme treasure. Of course, this was in a one-on-one situation. If it was a one-on-one battle and he had less than 10% of his soul energy left after killing an opponent with his soul attack, it would be troublesome. But no matter what, he now had a trump card, and it was a top-tier trump card. My current battle power is at least 3,000 in the 2 training camps. But the number of cultivators who can survive this move is at most in the double digits in the 2 training camps. There were many special life forms with powerful bloodlines in the training camps. Their bodies and soul structures were different from ordinary humans, demons, monsters, and foreign race experts. The Shattered Soul Kill book was a functional Heavenly Tao Supreme Treasure, and its strongest ability was to destroy the opponent's soul defense. As for its ability to strengthen soul attacks, it was only average. Therefore, it might not be able to kill those special life forms with powerful souls. But even if it's just severely injuring them, it's enough. One soul attack, and I'll kill them until they fall asleep. Lin Feng smiled. How strong was he in a one-on-one battle? With the 9th stage of the Kunling Heart Arrow and the Shattered Spirit Kill book, there were no more than 10 people in the entire Hidden Zune training camp who could defeat him. After we get out, I'll exchange for some soul recovery treasures. Lin Feng continued to cultivate. Every time he used the Soul Control Secret Palace, it would cost 100 Zune points, and he only had 20 years of cultivation time. Even though Lin Feng was rich and had a lot of Zune points, he still couldn't bear to enter 5 times in a row. Back then, when he had improved his soul control and cultivated the 8th level of the Kunling Heart Arrow, he had only entered it twice, and the first time was free. But this time, he had to enter it 5 times, spending 500 Zune points. My soul control is far from enough. I can't control those pinnacle Heavenly Tao cardinal treasures. Lin Feng knew very well that his soul was strong, but just like the Chaos Force, he had to cultivate. If one had talent, but did not cultivate, it would be a waste of words. Fortunately, soul attacks didn't require too much control. It was more about the quality and purity of the soul itself. Simply put, it was talent. Even so, cultivating the 9th level of the Kunling Heart Arrow took a lot of effort, and he could barely control it, because using the 9th level of the Kunling Heart Arrow left him with only 10% of his soul power. A truly strong soul control can easily control 99% of one's soul power with just 1%. Lin Feng had broadened his horizons in the Soul Control Secret Palace. He had seen the strength of those cultivators with strong soul control, and it was truly amazing. When he used the pinnacle Heavenly Tao cardinal treasures, their power was more than just strong. One day, I'll be able to reach that level. Lin Feng had a very deep desire for soul control. This was because he had a supreme treasure of the chaos, the Great Wall. It seemed as though he could control souls as well. But he would have to wait until he became a sovereign. After reaching a bottleneck in the creation of a saber technique, Lin Feng didn't continue. Sometimes, if one was too focused on breaking through the bottleneck, the more chaotic one's mind was, the harder it would be to succeed. Instead, if he split his mind to do other things and change his mindset, he might gain new insights. Perfect Time Array, Concept Heaven and Earth, Cardinal Treasure Analysis Center. Lin Feng went in and out of all the top-notch training settings, not caring about the consumption of hidden revered points. Even if he couldn't get first place in the newcomer ranking, he would at least be in the top 3. Third place would also be rewarded with 2,000 hidden revered points. Plus, he would get double the reward for the newcomers in the survival zone. He definitely wouldn't lack hidden revered points in the next era. The last 300 years, Lin Feng went into the Cardinal Treasure Analysis Center. This was a place he hadn't been to often before. Because mastering the Cardinal Treasure was a natural thing, he didn't need to be too deliberate. But now, he still needed to make some effort. He had been there many times when he mastered the Shattered Spirit Kill book. He had to admit that mastering a pinnacle heavenly Tao Cardinal Treasure was indeed much easier. Other pinnacle heavenly Tao Cardinal Treasures aside, he still had 2 pinnacle heavenly Tao Cardinal Treasures that he hadn't fully mastered yet. War Saber Deen, War Armor Fallen Barbarian Armor. One for offense and one for defense. Different from the Kuan Ling Hard Arrow, these were the weapons he relied on to survive and kill. One for offense and one for defense. Especially War Saber Deen, it directly determined the level of his combat strength. I haven't even used 10% of War Saber Deen's true strength. I've only activated 4 layers of inscriptions, 2 of which were activated by Deen himself. I need to activate at least the 5th layer of inscriptions in the remaining time. If possible, it would be best if I could activate the 6th layer as well. The Perished Barbarian Armor has 3 layers of defense and 2 special skills. Currently, I've only activated the 1st layer of defense. Next, I need to activate the 2nd layer of defense and master the 1st special skill, Barbarian Block. Lin Feng didn't rely on the Perished Barbarian Armor because he was good at offense. But the survival zone had the word survival in it. There were dangers everywhere, and it wasn't always a perfect plan. Most of the time, he had to passively resist the dangers. If he could increase his defense, he naturally had to do so. The 2 special skills were Barbarian Block and Perished Barbarian Armor. Barbarian Block was very effective against pure strength attacks, such as Soul Power and Attack Momentum. It was a basic special skill of the Perished Barbarian Armor. Perished Barbarian Armor was much more difficult. It had a very strong defense against time and space attacks. It was an ultimate special skill and was extremely difficult to master. Right now, it was more reliable to master the 2nd layer of defense and the basic special skill, Barbarian Block. Chapter 2457. The survival domain and the battle domain were completely different. One was a real battle, while the other was a virtual space controlled by a top-level AI. Only in the survival domain was one's true battle strength. Combining the Heavenly Path treasure, one's bloodline talent, and any other conditions, one's performance on the battlefield, one's strength in the face of life and death, etc. This was the true battlefield to train the strong. Therefore, even if a large number of geniuses died in the survival domain every era, the God-slaying training camp and hidden revered training camp didn't care at all. A true expert had to face life and death directly. It's about time. Lin Feng left the Treasure Analysis Center. This was one of the cheapest training facilities in the camp. It only cost 10 Qian revered points to enter for 50 years. He spent 300 years in there and spent 60 Qian revered points. Compared to the Soul Control Secret Hall, it was nothing. I only have 3,987 Qian revered points left. Lin Feng sighed. Qian revered points came and went quickly. He relied on the battle domain to earn a lot. Otherwise, the Qian revered points from the dangerous natural region would be far from enough. Newbies were the fastest to earn Qian revered points. In this era, he had to do his best to earn Qian revered points. In the next era, there wouldn't be double rewards, and it would be his 2nd time entering the battle domain and survival domain. so he wouldn't get as many Qian Revere points. Survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest, survival domain. Normal special class geniuses would have a death immortal puppet. Other geniuses might not have it. Some performed well in the dangerous natural region or the battle domain, so they could exchange for Qian Revere points. Some were lucky enough to find treasures in the treasure domain and exchange them for Qian Revere points. Dying in the battle domain meant no loss. However, if one were to die in the survival domain, the lightest loss would be a death immortal puppet worth 500 Qian Revere points, and the worst-case scenario would be death. Of course, one didn't have to kill to enter the survival domain. As long as one could survive, they would pass. Obtaining a survival crystal or earning 100 survival points would be considered as completing the mission. Everyone had their own goals. Not all cultivators pursued high scores and rankings. Some just wanted to pass the test of the survival domain smoothly. A survival crystal is worth 100 Qian Revered points. Level 2 geniuses can exchange for 10 survival crystals. Level 1 geniuses can exchange for 20 survival crystals. A special class genius can be exchanged for up to 30 survival crystals. Newbies get double. Lin Feng carefully read the rules of the survival domain. Even though he had already read through it several times and memorized it in his heart, there was no harm in reading it a few more times. He was afraid that he might miss something or violate some rules. Killing is not restricted in the survival field. The 2 training camps can even kill the trainees of their own training camps, but your score will be deducted. Although there were not many rules in the survival field, everything you did would be recorded by the top AI. The deduction of points is a small matter, but the venerables of the 7th Mercenary Alliance will have a bad impression of your actions. Is it to let us know that we shouldn't have the heart to harm others, but we shouldn't let our guard down? Lin Feng could roughly guess the purpose of the rules. There were too many cases of people killing each other for benefits, even if they belonged to the same faction. It was hard to tell what was in a person's heart, not to mention that the human race wasn't the only race in a faction. There were monsters, devils, special life forms, and other alien races. Sometimes, it was indeed necessary to be careful. Kill the trainees of the other training camp and obtain survival points. Survival points can be checked in the Hidden Zune Luo crystal at any time. Every time a trainee enters the survival field, the top AI will calculate their initial survival points based on your score, danger field ranking, and your current level. The highest is 10,000, the lowest is 1. Complete the kill, obtain half the survival points of the trainees of the other training camp. 10th year in the survival field, automatically obtain 10 survival points. 20th year in the survival field, automatically obtain 20 survival points. 30th year in the survival field, automatically obtain 30 survival points. 40th year in the survival field, automatically obtain 40 survival points. Only when you are killed will your initial survival points be calculated. Lin Feng continued reading. Survival points were the same as survival crystals. They could be exchanged for Hidden Zune points, but it was a bit more troublesome to exchange for survival points. The survival field encouraged killing, especially when the trainees of the other training camps were involved. It would create a strong smell of gunpowder. 2 training camps, 2 giants, who would be willing to admit defeat. The Godslayer training camp's trainees might be stronger individually, but the Hidden Zune training camp's trainees were more numerous. Let's see who's stronger. The survival field had always been like this. The Hidden Zune training camp rarely had any solo trainees. They usually moved in groups of a few or even a dozen. Not only did they have the advantage in numbers, they could also defend themselves. After all, they only needed to stay in the survival field for 40 years to obtain 100 survival points and successfully complete the survival field test. At that time, they could choose to stay or leave. But he would definitely act alone. If he entered the survival field just to survive, it would be too boring. Since he was participating, he had to give it his all, not to mention he had already prepared everything. The Godslayer training camp's trainees loved killing and fighting, which suited him perfectly, because he was the same type of person. Survival points, the further you go, the more you'll get from killing the trainees of the other training camp. Like survival crystals, there's an exchange limit. Survival crystals are 3,000 hidden Zune points. Survival points are 5,000 hidden Zune points. Newbies can get up to 16,000 hidden Zune points. Compared to the combat field, it was much more. This was the highest reward in the training camp. 1 point for one's efforts, one's gains. Entering the survival field was a matter of putting one's life on the line, so the rewards were even higher. Moreover, the survival field score was twice as high as the combat fields. But even if one wasn't a newbie, it was harder than ascending to the heavens to get the full 8,000 hidden Zune points. Especially for survival points, it got harder and harder to exchange for them. The seniors of the training camp from the 3rd era onwards, the highest hidden Zune points they could get would decrease. Every era, the upper limit would decrease by 1,000 until it reached the lower limit of 1,000, which was a total of 2,000 hidden Zune points. There are quite a few people in the hidden Zune training camp who can get the full 8,000 hidden Zune points on average. It happens once every few dozen eras. But just like the combat field, newbies who can get the full 16,000 hidden Zune points only appear once every few hundred eras. The closest was 1,025 eras ago. Lin Feng smiled. The survival field was much harder than the combat field. It wasn't easy to survive against top experts, and to get the full 16,000 hidden Zune points was like the moon in the water. In the combat field, Huang Qinyin and I both broke the record of 381 eras, but we couldn't decide who was better. In the survival field, we can settle this once and for all. Let's see who is this era's, the strongest newbie king. Chapter 2458. Training Camp, year 9899. It was the last year before the survival zone opened. All the cultivators in the 5 regions of the hidden Supreme Training Camp were prepared. Entering the survival zone was a requirement. Every cultivator had to enter. Even if they couldn't enter due to special reasons, they would be kicked out of the training camp or even kicked out of the 7th Mercenary Alliance. A coward wasn't worthy of being an honorable. Brother Lin, you really don't want to come with us? Wang Zihan asked. Yes, Brother Lin Feng. It's your first time in the survival zone. It'll be better if you get used to it with us first. Min Luo said. Lin Feng appreciates the 2 seniors' good intentions. Lin Feng smiled apologetically. It's just that this junior is used to being alone. Although Wang Zihan and Min Luo were strong and experienced, Lin Feng had decided to be alone from the start, so he rejected them. However, the 2 had good intentions. They were all from the Xingfeng branch, so they would help each other. All right, with your current strength, there's not much we can do to help, Wang Zihan said with a smile. Min Luo nodded. Brother Lin Feng may be strong, but you still have to be careful of the god-slaying training camp's cultivators. They're all battle-hardened, so they'll be able to display stronger fighting strength in the survival zone. You also have to be careful of the areas that are easy to hide. There are many places where you can't sense auras. Chi Ruo Lin reminded. Lin Feng nodded. Although he knew a lot of things, the thought was the most important. Cultivators from different branches were more familiar with each other, so they were more united, so they would choose to fight side by side in the survival zone. After all, only by working together could they survive better in the survival zone. Only by surviving could they get a higher score, right? Just the survival points alone, if they could survive the 100 years, they would get 550 survival points, which could be exchanged for 550 Qianzun points. For those geniuses with average talent, 550 Qianzun points was a huge amount. The death immortal puppet that could save their lives was only worth 500 Qianzun points. Not all cultivators were like Lin Feng and Huang Qinyin, who had an endless supply of Qianzun points. 99% of the cultivators in the training camp lacked Qianzun points, and they were in dire need of it. The most deadly danger in the survival realm comes from the hidden Zune training camp. Next is the 7th ferocious beast of the God realm. Lastly, the cultivators from the same training camp. He already knew everything he needed to know about the survival zone. Normally, it was rare for cultivators from the same training camp to kill each other, because harming others was not beneficial to oneself. Even when fighting against the Godslayer training camp, killing the opponent was not allowed to take the opponent's treasures. This was the rule of the survival realm. They could kill for survival and raiding, but they couldn't kill for treasures. However, cultivators were individuals after all. Even if they had conflicts with the training camp, they could be found everywhere. Normally, they could not kill each other, but in the life domain, they did not have to care so much. For example, Kabishing was narrow-minded and wanted to fight Lin Feng in the hunting zone. In the past, Kabishing swore in his heart that he would tear Lin Feng to pieces in the survival realm, but now he did not have the guts to do so. What a joke! Lin Feng was now ranked 975 on the rating board, while Kabishing barely squeezed into the top 10,000. The difference between the top 1,000 and the top 10,000 was absolute. Giant ferocious beasts were native beasts of the seventh god realm. They only had low intelligence and killing intent. Not only did they exist in the survival domain, but there were also many in the hunting domain. Many cultivators had gone to the hunting domain to kill countless giant ferocious beasts to earn revered points and accumulate experience. The difference was that some of the ferocious beasts in the survival realm had survival crystals. These survival crystals were put into the ferocious beasts by the sovereigns in the survival realm. Low-class ferocious beasts, no survival crystals. Mid-class ferocious beast, 1%. High-class ferocious beast, 5%. Brutal ferocious beast, 20%. Ferocious beast overlord, 50%. Ferocious beast king, 100%. Among them, the low-class ferocious beasts had the battle strength of a normal peak divine lord. Mid-class ferocious beasts had the battle strength of a peak divine lord. High-class ferocious beasts were close to the limit of a peak divine lord. My battle strength is about the same as my ranking, and I'm invincible among peak divine lords. The outside world kept criticizing Lin Feng, saying that his ranking did not match his strength, and that he was just relying on his achievements in the battle zone. But Lin Feng knew that best. 5,000 years ago, that might have been the case. But now, he definitely had the battle strength that matched his ranking. In a one-on-one fight, I can kill a ferocious beast overlord that also has the battle strength of a peak divine lord. Even if I'm not a match for the ferocious beast king, I can still protect myself. Lin Feng had absolute confidence in getting survival crystals. The ferocious beast overlord had a 50% survival crystal, which meant that he could get one for every 2 he killed. It was very easy. As for the ferocious beast king, it had the battle strength of a beginner venerable. He might be able to fight it, but he had little confidence in killing it. As for the strongest ferocious beast emperor, there were very few of them in the survival zone that were as strong as venerables. They were all kings in their own territories, so it was fine as long as he did not provoke them. The battle zone has extra rewards, and so does the survival zone. The ferocious beasts have the talent of the universe, which originates from their ferocious beast original core. Refining it allows one to comprehend the corresponding universe heavenly path secret technique. Apart from that, the King Zone and Emperor Zone of the Survival Zone will have heaven and earth treasures and even special treasures. For example, soaking in the pool of chaos will give one a chaos body. For example, climbing the mountain of life will increase one's life level. For example, soul immortal grass can greatly increase one's soul quality. There were too many treasures. That was one of the main reasons why cultivators dared to enter the survival zone despite knowing how dangerous it was. Where could one find these heaven and earth treasures and special universal treasures in the outside world? Even the special class geniuses could not get their hands on these treasures that could not be measured with money. Only by exploring the universe's secret realms would one have a chance. But in the survival zone, as long as one had enough strength and luck, they could get their hands on them. Of course, the stronger the treasure, the more dangerous it would be, and there might only be one in the entire survival zone. For example, the pool of chaos was not originally in the survival zone. Instead, Lord Huang Zun directly poured the pool of chaos from the universe's secret realms into it for 1 or 2 cultivators to use. The first one could completely absorb it, but the second one could only absorb a small part of it. Like the soul immortal grass, which was in the Emperor's zone and guarded by the ferocious Beast Emperor, it was extremely difficult to get one. Actually, compared to the ratings, these super treasures that are hard to find in the universe's secret realms are the most valuable ones in the survival zone. Lin Feng knew that these were the rewards that the two training camps had specially set up for these geniuses. Extra super rewards. Chapter 2459. Every cultivator in every region was on high alert. Not just the hidden Zune training camp, even the deicide training camp cultivators were solemn. This was a test of survival, strength, and ability. The winner was king, and the loser was a bandit. No one dared to underestimate them. Even the strongest of the two camps, Trout Dragon and Taigen Decidua. For countless eras, it was common for the first place to fail. This was because the survival zone was the place with the highest chance of becoming a venerable in the entire training camp. There was no other. At the very least, 1 to 2 cultivators would break through and become venerable ones in every survival domain test, obtaining treasures, facing death and desperation, and so on. The tens of millions of cultivators gathered here were all the best of their respective astral realms. They were already at the peak of the divine Lord level. When the time came, it was only natural for them to break through. Although they had to leave the survival zone immediately after becoming a venerable, sometimes there was no other way. There was once when the top of the deicide training camp's ranking, CI Shio, killed a team of hidden Zune training camp cultivators. In the end, this team of cultivators died tragically. One of the cultivators was so angry that he broke through to become a venerable and killed CI Shio. The survival zone was different from the combat zone. In the combat zone, the top AI could control everything, but the survival zone was a natural secret zone. Even if Huang Zun, who was in charge, teleported there, it would take some time. In a battle, a split second was enough to be fatal. There were plenty of people who had fallen from the top of the rankings, not to mention the top 100 and top 10,000 of the rankings. Hatred, betrayal, encirclement, and even being killed by the giant ferocious Beast Emperor. There were many. The outcome of a battle would always be unknown. I have to be careful, and even more careful. Lin Feng didn't dare to be careless. Even if he had a very strong trump card and a life-saving move, the survival zone was full of dangers. No one knew what would happen in the next second. Not to mention, the 9th level of the Kuan Ling hard arrow had a lot of restrictions. At least, it was useless against the giant ferocious beast. So, no matter how confident Lin Feng was, he still kept the death immortal puppet for safety. Survival zone open. In front of everyone's expectations, the voice of the top AI resounded throughout the two training camps. Every cultivator's eyes lit up as they all pressed the hidden revered Luo Jing's button to teleport. Hua, 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 rays of white light flashed in the universe area. Lin Feng also pressed the button. Unlike the other cultivators who were in groups of 3 to 5, Lin Feng was alone. In the entire universe, less than 1% had the courage to be a Lone Ranger. The survival zone was very big, and one couldn't teleport at will. Flying alone wouldn't be able to explore it in 1,000 years, let alone 100 years. There were 10,800 king's domains guarded by the Beast King. There were at least 2 or 3, and at most 10. There were 108 king's domains with giant beast emperors. The level of the treasures was definitely higher than the king's domain. However, because there were giant beast emperors that were comparable to venerables, the king's domain was much more dangerous than the king's domain. The scariest thing was that it was a domain. It meant that once you entered, you would be completely exposed. No treasures would be able to hide you, and all the giant beasts in the domain, including the Beast King and giant beast emperors, would hunt you down. I'm not picky. No matter which domain it is, it's fine as long as I can enter it. Lin Feng had enough strength, so he wasn't worried. He could enter the king's domain without fear. Even if it was the most dangerous king's domain, he would just be chased away. As long as he could find it, no matter which domain he entered, he would definitely gain something. As long as I gain something in the first 50 years, I'll be able to increase my battle strength a little. In the next 50 years, I'll have enough chips and confidence to fight for the position of strongest newcomer king. Even if it doesn't work out, I'll have to hunt for enough survival crystals in the first 50 years. Lin Feng nodded secretly. Becoming the strongest newcomer king was his #1 goal. The second best was to earn the full 16,000 venerable points in the survival zone. Chapter 2460. Low-class giant beasts, no survival crystals. Middle-class giant beasts, 1%. High-class giant beasts, 5%. Hunting the ferocious beasts in the survival zone is meaningless. Although these ferocious beasts are ordinary and easy to kill, it is too time-consuming. Even if it is a brutal, ferocious beast with a 20% chance of survival, it is meaningless. Killing 5 brutal giant beasts only gave him 1 survival crystal. It was a waste of time. In the survival zone, ferocious beasts could be found everywhere. However, most of them were normal ferocious beasts, low-tier, mid-tier, and high-tier. Ferocious beasts were almost equivalent to chieftains. There were still quite a few of them, but Lord-tier ferocious beasts were much rarer. Usually, only 1 giant beast lord would appear in a large area. With my current strength, I can easily kill a giant beast lord. I can even fight the giant beast king. The best place to get survival crystals is the king domain. Lin Feng's thoughts were clear. It was difficult to find the king domain. After all, there were only 108 of them. However, there were 10,800 king domains. Although the survival zone was large, it should not be a problem to find one of them. In a king domain, there would be many giant beast king and its subordinates. The weakest would be the brutal giant beasts, but there were also many giant beast lords. It was much more efficient to get survival crystals in the king domain than outside. That was because the number of survival crystals he needed was too large. Finding one of them is equivalent to finding a treasure vault. Even if I can't get the maximum 60 survival crystals, it's easy to get half. Let's look around and feel the atmosphere of the survival zone. The king domain was large, but the king domain was even larger. Both domains contained rich treasures. Although these treasures might not be of much use to the venerables, they were very useful to the current peak almighty geniuses. Not to mention, among these treasures, there were treasures buried by Huang Zun and the ultimate god. Even the venerables coveted them. To find the treasures, luck and strength were indispensable. The survival zone was huge. Therefore, even though more than 10 million cultivators had entered, it was still not easy to encounter them. Especially in the beginning, when the top AI separated the cultivators completely. With a clear target, Lin Feng's actions were naturally decisive. Although the king's domain didn't have any special characteristics, it was evenly distributed throughout the entire survival zone, so it was very easy to find it. With the current location as the center point, all he had to do was circle the area. Using the size of a king's domain as the inner diameter of the ring, it saves the most time and is also the most reliable method. There are 10,800 king's domains. As long as I have enough time, it won't be a problem to find one. Lin Feng instantly sped away, his aura not spreading out much, and it was too difficult to sense the king's domain and the giant beasts. In the survival zone, the naked I was more reliable than aura. Hidden Exalt Luo Jing is quite useful. There is no need for him to calculate his position. Every time he circled around, the map on the Qian Exalt Luo crystal would open up a layer. Although it was just a rough mark, it was already very effective. His position in the survival domain was also clear at a glance. However, the survival zone is really huge. Lin Feng had been traveling for dozens of days, and he found that what he had explored was only the tip of the iceberg. Every time he circled around, the distance would increase. In less than an hour, every time he circled around, the distance would exceed dozens of days, and it was still increasing. And this was after he calculated the distance and the inner diameter of the king's domain. Otherwise, the efficiency would be even lower. If I'm lucky, I'll find it immediately. If I'm unlucky, it might take 3 to 7 years or even 10 years. Lin Feng looked at the Qian Exalt Luo Jing, and his heart trembled. From the map on the Qian Exalt Luo Jing, he could roughly estimate the size of the survival zone. Luckily, the king's domain was evenly distributed in every region. Otherwise, if he was unlucky, he wouldn't be able to find it even after 100 years. A transparent beam of light emerged from Lin Feng's body, faintly showing the image of an ingot. From time to time, invisible energies pierced through the space around Lin Feng, making sizzling noises that sent chills down one's spine. This was a set of rare, top-grade heavenly Tao Supreme treasures that combined the power of light and space. Dusk Thorn Ingot. This was one of the 5 top-tier heavenly law treasures that Lin Feng had. It was a domain-type heavenly law treasure that could both attack and defend. Compared to ordinary domain-type true treasures, the Dusk Thorn Ingot had the light-type Twilight domain, the space-type bone-piercing domain, and the strongest one was the Twilight Assassination domain, which was a fusion of light and space. Among domain-type, top-notch, heavenly axiom absolute treasures, it could be considered one of the best. In the Treasure Analysis Center, Lin Feng had already grasped the first 2 forms, including the most difficult one, the Twilight Assassination domain. Now, he was releasing the second form, the Piercing Bone domain. The first and second forms didn't have much of a difference in strength. The difference was that the first form focused on defense, while the Piercing Bone domain focused on attack. One used light energy, while the other used space energy. Although the Twilight domain was better for defense and warning, the Piercing Bone domain used space energy. For Lin Feng, who had the Black Whirlpool, it was 0 energy consumption, even if it was a top-tier heavenly law treasure that used up a lot of space energy. Therefore, Lin Feng was now releasing the Piercing Bone domain. Although it focused on attack, no matter which form it was, the basic domain effect was there. As long as any danger approached, the domain would sense it, which was very important in the survival zone. Not only did he have to guard against the giant beasts, but he also had to guard against the cultivators of the God-slaying training camp and the hidden saint training camp. Here, he couldn't just rely on his aura and eyes. Every cultivator was like the 8 immortals crossing the sea, showing off their abilities. Especially those old people of the training camp. They were very experienced and had already prepared all kinds of sharp weapons for the survival zone. Better to be careful. Rumble, the earth shook violently. Lin Feng suddenly stopped. He didn't sense the aura, but his intuition had already reacted. This situation obviously came from a powerful giant beast. Shua! Lin Feng's body suddenly turned, and the Piercing Bone domain almost instantly transformed into the first form, the Twilight domain. Rays of twilight radiance blossomed from the Twilight Thorn Ingot, and the sky seemed to have darkened. Thick rays of light condensed, and with the Twilight Thorn Ingot as the center, lines of light appeared densely, covering the entire area. The domain effect appeared instantly. In addition to protection, it also had the ability to sense and restrain. For cultivators, domain-type true treasures were second only to weapons and armors. It's here. Lin Feng looked into the distance, not panicking, but rather excited. This was his first battle after coming to the survival zone. Chapter 2461. It's a brutal behemoth. Lin Feng chuckled. The brutal behemoths were divided into ordinary brutal behemoths, Lord-level brutal behemoths, Lord-level brutal behemoths, and Beast King behemoths. Normally, one would only encounter these 4 types in the King and Emperor domains, but more than 90% of them were ordinary brutal behemoths. The chances of encountering a brutal behemoth were less than 10%, but he had encountered one in his first battle. With a 20% chance of obtaining survival crystals, the brutal giant ferocious beast's aura was comparable to that of a peak divine master. Of course, their combat power was not much different. Every giant ferocious beast that was born in the 7th God world had an innate chaotic body. Although it was not as good as Lin Feng's perfect chaotic body, it could still become a Vajra Lord. Of course, the universe had given the ferocious beasts such a monstrous talent, but it would naturally deprive them of other parts. The ferocious beasts had yet to develop their intelligence, and they only knew how to kill, and kill again. It was rare for a ferocious beast to break through and become a legendary ferocious beast emperor. Boom! The brutal behemoth threw a punch. The air seemed to have stopped flowing. The brutal behemoth's terrifying use of chaotic force had reached the small success level. However, the brutal behemoth's attack was weakened by layers of twilight light. Bang! Lin Feng directly waved his saber, and the mega avalanche fell. It was the same small success, chaotic heavenly way, but it was mixed with the heavenly way of the subtle realm. It completely defeated the brutal giant beast. Endless avalanches collapsed, instantly burying this brutal giant beast that was like a giant mountain. No matter how strong it was, it could not be used. Whoosh! Lin Feng's blade cut through the air and beheaded the brutal behemoth without any effort. To the current Lin Feng, an opponent at the peak of the Divine Master limit was nothing. He could already defeat it in terms of combat power. Not to mention that he had all kinds of heavenly treasures, his perfect chaotic body, and his bloodline. Even if he did not use the blade technique, or aura, he had the absolute combat power of a peak Divine Master. Oh, Lin Feng was slightly surprised. A diamond-like polygonal object appeared in the void. It emitted boundless radiance and had a total of 108 facets. It was extremely beautiful and exuded an aura that made one's heart flutter. 20% chance of getting a life crystal? Lin Feng laughed. At this moment, his luck had reversed. Pa! Lin Feng kept the hidden revered Luo crystals, but didn't exchange them for hidden revered points. It didn't make a difference whether he exchanged them earlier or later. In the survival domain, survival crystals weren't allowed to be fought over. One life crystal meant that he could end the test of the survival zone early. This also meant that he could exchange for 100 hidden revered points. Lin Feng didn't really care about the life crystals that other cultivators could only dream of. As long as he could find the king's domain and kill enough ferocious beasts and ferocious beast overlords, he would be able to obtain a large amount of them. I'd rather use this luck to search for a king's domain. Lin Feng's saber was as fast as lightning. He quickly cut open the body of the giant ferocious beast and took out a small crystal ball the size of a fingernail. So this is the ferocious beast original core. Lin Feng could feel the violent and tyrannical aura contained within it. It was extremely condensed and compressed into a small ball. It was hard to imagine that such a giant ferocious beast original core would be so small. The higher the strength, the bigger the ferocious beast original core. This is because it contains more energy and laws. This ferocious beast original core isn't very useful to me. It can only be used to replenish energy. The ferocious beast original core was basically made up of heaven and earth energy. It could quickly replenish the energy consumed in the body. However, this wasn't the main function of the ferocious beast original core. The most important function of the ferocious beast original core was that it contained the innate ability of the universe. As long as one refined it, they would be able to comprehend the corresponding universe heavenly path secret technique. However, comprehending it was one thing. Whether or not he could master it was another matter. The ferocious beast original core he just killed contained the universe heavenly path secret technique. It wasn't his specialty. Just like the life crystal, the ferocious beast original core couldn't be stolen. Of course, it could be given as a gift. Normally, many cultivators would form small teams and take the ferocious beast original cores they needed. Schwa. After storing the ferocious beast original core into the hidden sovereign Luo crystal, Lin Feng continued to explore the survival domain. Encountering a ferocious beast was something that would happen sooner or later, so he didn't care too much about it. He also didn't go to the hunting domain to gain more information on ferocious beasts like other cultivators. This was because strength was the fundamental deciding factor. If one was strong enough, like Trout Dragon and Taigan Decidua from the DSI training camp, they could even kill the most terrifying ferocious beast emperor. If one wasn't strong enough, even if one had all the information on ferocious beasts, they would still lose. The blue lake stretched as far as the eye could see. The edge of the lake flashed with silver light, like a layer of sparkling pearls covering the ground. At first glance, it was easy to have the illusion that there were treasures in the lake. In fact, the lake itself was a king's domain. 330 survival points. At the center of the lake, a man wearing blue armor and a mask perfectly blended in with the lake water. His eyes were sunken deep into his eye sockets, and his gray pupils flashed. Deicide Training Camp. Huicheng, ranked 45488 on the ranking. Possessing the bloodline of the Monster Clan and the Water Clan, Huicheng was able to unleash an extremely strong combat power in the water, even stronger than on land. Therefore, even though his ranking was not high, he was able to kill the top 10,000 powerhouses of the Hidden Elder Training Camp. In the water, Huicheng's strength was definitely above the peak God Lord level. Coming from the Deicide Training Camp, he was also at the peak God Lord level. In the Hidden Sovereign Training Camp, only the top 10,000 experts were at the peak God Lord level. But in the Deicide Training Camp, the top 50,000 experts were all at the peak God Lord level. This was the difference. The Deicide Training Camp had few cultivators, but they were all elites. I don't know when a big fish will come. Huicheng was very smart. He knew that he didn't have any advantage on land, so he chose to fight in the water. Whether it was the humans or the demons, their fighting power would be greatly reduced in the water. Waiting for the rabbit by a tree stump could prevent unnecessary battles and accidents to the greatest extent. Moreover, in the lake, he could freely choose his opponent. The glittering fine sand around him was one of his peak Heavenly Way supreme treasures, the Thousand Sand. The energy released by the peak Heavenly Way supreme treasures combined with the uniqueness of the lake itself. With a little arrangement, it was like a natural domain, forming a perfect trap. To be able to rank in the top 50,000 of the Deicide Training Camp, Huicheng was definitely not an ordinary person. Swoosh! Huicheng, who had his eyes closed, suddenly brightened up. Another fish has taken a bait. Huicheng sneered. Instantly, his figure turned into a wave and disappeared. Chapter 2462. This lake doesn't seem to be anything special. There shouldn't be a king's domain here. So, the strange energy waves outside should be from the Heavenly Law treasure. This is a trap. Entering the center of the lake, Lin Feng looked calm. With his observation and perception ability, he naturally discovered that this lake was different. The silver light that flickered at the edge of the lake was like a layer of sparkling pearls. Every single pearl of light contained a unique and powerful aura. They seemed to be separated, but they also seemed to form a whole. There were two possibilities. First, the entire lake was a whole, and these beads were part of it. If so, the possibility of the lake itself being a king's domain was very high. After all, treasures wouldn't exist for no reason. All the treasures in the survival zone were either in the king's domain or the king's domain. Second, these beads were Heavenly Law treasures, so they had a powerful aura. However, this was not the treasure domain. It was impossible for a Heavenly Law treasure to exist alone, unless someone deliberately used them as bait to disguise the lake and mislead the cultivators. The chances were 50-50. Actually, Lin Feng didn't care about the chances. Even if there was only a 10% chance that this lake was a king's domain, he would still go in and take a look. After all, opportunities were hard to come by. If it really was a king's domain, wouldn't it be a pity to miss it? Moreover, Lin Feng had absolute confidence in his strength, so he had nothing to fear. With such a powerful trump card, there were very few people in the two training camps who could defeat him in a one-on-one battle. Even if it was a trap, so what? Chi! 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 The water in the lake suddenly surged, rapidly rotating and fluctuating. Rays of sparkling and translucent light came from all directions, causing the entire lake to become sparkling and translucent, as if countless crystals were emitting light. A peak realm Heavenly Law treasure. Lin Feng felt a heavy pressure. His twilight domain was completely suppressed. This was a direct suppression of the domain power. Every bead of light was as heavy as 1,000 pounds. They smashed the twilight domain into pieces, leaving a vacuum in its defense. Whoosh! The light of the twilight domain instantly turned transparent. Beams of bone-piercing energy penetrated the space and appeared on the surface of his body. They were like electric snakes, tearing apart the lake water and the beads of light. The second form, bone-piercing domain. Since he couldn't defend his domain, then he wouldn't defend himself. The bone-piercing energy erupted with powerful offensive power, completely ignoring the pressure from the domain type heavenly axiom, supreme treasure. Because there were too many of them, and they were completely amorphous, there was no way to suppress them. Most importantly, Lin Feng possessed boundless spatial energy. Clang! The War Saber Emperor's concealment's third seal was opened, and Lin Feng's strength suddenly increased dramatically. He closed his eyes, and his sense of aura became more organized and clear. In the water, and under the suppression of his opponent's domain-type true treasure, what he could see with his naked eye was completely useless. The water flow was unpredictable, and the powerful domain energy covered every inch of the area. Lin Feng was like a lone sail in the sea, on the verge of collapse. I haven't seen him in the information. He's just a newbie. Hui Chang's eyes were like torches. Inside the thousand sand domain, his form was constantly changing along with the water flow. Although he could have attacked earlier, he didn't. Occupying the home ground advantage, Hui Chang was even more cautious. If he encountered a super strong person like Pu Kiki from the opponent's training camp, wouldn't he be an idiot if he still attacked? He had information on all the experts in the hidden revered training camp. Only the newbies didn't have it, and they didn't need it. Normally, there would be a lot of newbies, and there would be a mix of good and bad people. The strongest ones weren't a threat, and they wouldn't waste time and energy on them. I thought it was a big fish, but it turned out to be a small shrimp. Hui Chang's gray eyes were filled with disappointment. His hands quickly changed, and 1,000 sand domain turned into bright pearls and jades, smashing heavily at Lin Feng, who was already in the fishing net. Boom! 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 The terrifying attack showed the tyrannical power of a peak heavenly law true treasure. Not only did it have a strong domain control ability, but it also had the destructive power of a peak offensive heavenly law true treasure. Hui Chang didn't need to show himself to kill his opponent. The previous two cultivators were the same. But this time what? Hui Chang's face suddenly changed. The human youth who was originally in the 1,000 sand domain suddenly changed, and an extreme white light suddenly shot straight at him, as if it knew where he was. Fast, the blade light condensed, hiding a shocking heavenly law of mixed strength. It was wrapped in extreme white light, and the domain couldn't suppress it at all. It was the heavenly law of fine will, and the power condensed into a bundle, breaking the 1,000 sand domain's attack. Chi! Chi! The blade light was indestructible. Only when the 1,000 sand domain was perfectly condensed could it be comparable to a peak offensive heavenly law true treasure. The scattered 1,000 sand domain was nothing to be afraid of. Boom! The lake shook, and the water collapsed. Swoosh! Hui Chang's face changed greatly. The blade light that condensed the white light was as fast as lightning, and it pierced a big hole in the domain. The human youth's figure appeared in front of him almost instantly. Oh no! Born in the deicide training camp, Hui Chang was used to seeing big scenes. His countless experiences of surviving death told him that the newcomer in front of him was quite terrifying, and his strength was almost on par with the super newcomers of this era. Tooth Crow. Bang! Boom! Boom! Hui Chang's first reaction was to attack directly. The water waves mixed with space energy made his body seem to escape into the lake while he attacked, and even the space changed. Hui Chang looked like he was attacking, but in fact, he was escaping. There were many opportunities to obtain survival points, and the survival domain was definitely not a place to show off. When there was danger, he had to escape. However, at this moment, an arc-shaped aurora drew a perfect arc from his side, and it looked like a crescent moon in the water. It dodged his attack and landed exactly where he was. Although the speed of the blade light was not as fast as the first light, its power was not inferior, and it might even be stronger. Moreover, it was very accurate. No! Hui Chang's face changed greatly, and he was extremely shocked. He did not expect the opponent's attack to be so fast and fierce, and it was completely out of the ordinary. This kind of attack was not only difficult to attack, but also completely defenseless. This was a completely indiscriminate fighting style. Chi! Chi! The blade light pierced through Hui Chang's body and tore him into pieces. Suddenly, a white light and a beautiful crystal-like puppet appeared in the lake, and it was blasted into countless pieces by the attack. It was the death immortal puppet. Boom! Hui Chang's attack also hit Lin Feng, but it was weakened by half by the Death Barbarian armor. The attack was originally just an illusion, and it was not even 30% of Hui Chang's full strength. Naturally, it could not hurt Lin Feng too much. However, Lin Feng's attack just now was real, and its power was shocking. The newly created Aurora Blade skill had just shown its brilliance. Aurora, Crescent Moon. Chapter 2463. Aurora's first move, Aurora, Absolute Speed. The ray-shaped Aurora was extremely condensed, and its speed was astonishing. Lin Feng had used this move to break through Hui Chang's Wan Zixia domain. Even though Wan Zixia's attack range was wide, it was destined to be lacking in one-sided attacks. The biggest use of the bone-piercing domain wasn't to block Wan Zixia's attack, nor was it to attack Hui Chang. Instead, it was to lock onto Hui Chang's position the moment he attacked. Then, with Aurora, Absolute Speed, it directly broke through Hui Chang's defense. The first move broke the domain, and the second move killed the opponent. The second move of the Aurora Saber art, Aurora Crescent, was the same as the saber itself. It was an arc-shaped saber light, and its power and attacking method were difficult to block. It was even better than Aurora Absolute Speed. The God Slayer training camp's cultivators are indeed cunning. Lin Feng clearly knew that if he didn't use Aurora, Crescent Moon, his opponent would have escaped. He was too good at fighting in the water. He was as cautious as a fish in water, slipping away at the slightest sign of danger. 420 points. Lin Feng looked at his survival points, which went from 0 to 420, and smiled with satisfaction. 100 survival points was enough to complete the test of the survival domain. So 420 points was equivalent to 420 Qianzun points, which was not bad. However, 1 point could only be exchanged for 1 Qianzun point, so only the first 1,000 Qianzun points could be exchanged. The points needed to exchange later would be higher and higher. Hui Chang, 45488 in the God Slayer training camp. His initial survival points were 510. He had obtained 330 survival points from killing 2 Qianzun training camp's cultivators, which added up to 840 points. Lin Feng had obtained half of that, so he had 420 points. After killing Hui Chang, Lin Feng didn't stay in the lake. Since this wasn't the king's domain, there was no need to waste time. Even if there were giant beasts in the lake, a single one of them wasn't attractive to him. What he needed now was to find the king's domain. As for Hui Chang's treasures, according to the rules of the survival domain, they were the same as the survival crystals and survival points, unable to be obtained. After all, the two training camps were competing with each other, not plundering. They were fundamentally different. After the initial adaptation period, fierce battles had started in the survival domain. The battle between Lin Feng and Hui Chang was just the tip of the iceberg. More than 10 million warriors were trying their best to survive. This was an ability that every cultivator should have. Those who possessed the Death Immortal Puppet would naturally be able to preserve their lives. Those who did not possess the Death Immortal Puppet would truly die once they died. The strong preyed on the weak, and the strong were respected. This was the law of the universe. Even if he didn't die in the hands of other cultivators today, he would die in the secret region of the universe someday. The universe is never merciful. Chi, the saber light, streaked across the body of a ferocious beast. Lin Feng took out the ferocious beast origin core and threw it into the hidden Exalt Luo crystal. Although this ferocious beast origin core was of the dark element, he didn't plan on refining it yet. Every minute and second in the survival realm was crucial, just like training in the combat realm. The third savage behemoth. Lin Feng's luck wasn't that good. Normally, a single cultivator wouldn't have a high chance of encountering a ferocious beast, but he had encountered 3 in such a short period of time. Of the 3, Only the first ferocious beast had a survival crystal, the other two didn't. This was a perfect 20% chance. As for the normal ferocious behemoths, Lin Feng had killed more than 10 of them. The number of ferocious behemoths is more than what the data says. Lin Feng rushed through a mountain range, his figure flickering. The ferocious behemoths in the survival domain didn't originally exist. They were caught by the knights every era and thrown into the survival domain. So, the number of ferocious behemoths in the survival domain was fixed. At the start, there would naturally be a lot of them, but as time passed and more ferocious behemoths were killed, the number of ferocious behemoths in the survival domain would decrease. So, some cultivators who wanted to survive would cleverly hide at the start, not wanting to encounter ferocious behemoths. For example, Hui Chong, who Lin Feng had just killed, was one of them. After all, the threat of ferocious behemoths was uncontrollable. Not every cultivator could easily kill a ferocious beast or an even stronger ferocious beast overlord. In the survival domain, there was even a ferocious beast king that roamed around. That was the fighting strength of a knight. It was even stronger than the current Lin Feng. In the two great training camps, there weren't many people who could kill a ferocious beast king. In the southeast of the survival domain, there was a broken ancient city. The stone pillars were engraved with layers upon layers of mysterious patterns. It was extremely huge. Looking at it, this ancient city seemed to have existed for a very long time. Ta! A small team from the Hidden Knight training camp stepped into the city. The leader was Qi Ruolin, followed by Hu Jinyu and Ouyang. The two humans and one beast got along very well. They all came from the Xingfeng branch and had a close relationship. In the survival domain, the most important factor in forming a team wasn't strength, but relationship. Only with a good relationship could they form a team. Otherwise, infighting was a small matter, but killing and plotting against each other was a big matter. Although the probability of such things happening was small, it still happened frequently. The relationship between people was too complicated, especially when seeing a top-grade treasure. Who wouldn't be tempted? Qi Ruolin's expression suddenly changed, and his eyes widened. Hu Jinyu and Ouyang followed Qi Ruolin's footsteps into the ancient city. They were also stunned and looked at each other. The two humans and one beast looked at their feet at the same time. Ripples flowed like water, and a strange power condensed around their bodies. Behind them, an inexplicable pattern appeared, as if they were in a strange world. Brother Qi, we are. Hu Jinyu faintly understood and looked at Qi Ruolin with a bitter smile. We have stepped into the domain realm. Qi Ruolin shook his head with a bitter smile and looked at Hu Jinyu and Ouyang. Feel it. This is the power of a domain. Then, we will retreat as soon as possible. Hu Jinyu and Ouyang nodded. When the three of them formed a team, they had a consensus that they would never touch a king's domain, not to mention an emperor's domain. The bigger the appetite, the bigger the portion of food you eat. A king's domain wasn't something they could touch. Shua, shua, shua. The three figures immediately retreated from the ancient city. There was no such thing as being forced in the survival zone. If they didn't want to enter a king's domain, they could leave at any time. So this is a king's domain. Ouyang pondered. I have entered it once before. Qi Ruolin nodded. No matter if it is a king's domain or an emperor's domain, nothing special could be seen from the outside. It will only be triggered when one enters the domain. Unfortunately, Hu Jinyu shook his head. Although we are lucky, we don't have the strength to try. Qi Ruolin smiled. It is not much luck. After staying in the survival zone for a long time, you will encounter it a few times. Hu Jinyu and Ouyang nodded. Indeed, there were 10,080 king's domains. If one stayed in the survival zone for decades, it would be hard not to encounter them unless one stayed in the same place all the time. Let's go. We will continue to look for lone beasts. Okay. Chapter 2464. Ding! A gentle sound rang in his mind. Lin Feng looked at hidden Exalt Luo Jing. His survival points had increased from 1190 to 1200. Every 10 years in the survival domain, survival points would be rewarded. The first 10 years were 10 points, the second 20 points, the third 30 points, and so on. Now, 10 years had passed. 1/10 of the time is gone, just like that. Lin Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In these 10 years, his luck wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. He didn't get what he wanted, but got a bunch of what he didn't want. He killed a bunch of giant, ferocious beasts and got 6 survival crystals. That was a lot. After all, the chances of getting survival crystals from giant, ferocious beasts were very low. Savage, ferocious beasts only got 20%, and normal giant, ferocious beasts were almost negligible. Lin Feng got 6 survival crystals, 4 of which came from savage, ferocious beasts, and 1 from a giant, ferocious beast lord. His luck was average, but he met a lot of giant, ferocious beasts. Killing 2 giant, ferocious beast lords gave him a 50% chance of getting 1 survival crystal. Killing 18 savage, ferocious beasts gave him a 20% chance of getting 4 survival crystals. The last survival crystal came from a high-class, giant, ferocious beast. Although the chance was only 5%, he killed a lot of them. He met 37 of them, double the number of savage, ferocious beasts. Even so, he only got 6 survival crystals. For other cultivators, it might be very satisfying, but for Lin Feng, it was definitely not a satisfactory answer. He planned to get 60 survival crystals in the first 50 years, which meant he would get 12 survival crystals every year. In the first 10 years, he only got half of the quota. Moreover, the first 10 years had the most giant, ferocious beasts. After that, the number of giant, ferocious beasts would gradually decrease, and the fewer the giant, ferocious beasts there were, the harder it would be to get survival crystals. In order to get 60 survival crystals, he had to find a king's domain, and it had to be a king's domain that no one had explored before. Otherwise, most of the savage, ferocious beasts and giant, ferocious beast lords would have been killed. How many survival crystals could he get? It's been 10 years, how unlucky. Lin Feng did not give up on his search. He continued to walk in circles, but as the inner diameter continued to expand, each circle took a long time. He knew that if he continued to search like this, it would only be a matter of time before he found a king's domain, and it would definitely happen within 50 years. But the problem was, what if the king's domain that he had spent so much effort to find had already been entered by someone else? There were over 10 million cultivators in the survival zone. 10800 king domains might seem like a lot, but it was nothing compared to the tens of millions of cultivators. Oh, Lin Feng couldn't help but look at the map on the Qianzun Luo crystal. 10 years ago, there were 3 white dots that were a distance away from him, but now they were much closer. They were his 3 good friends, Qi Wolin, Hu Jinyu, Ouyang Yi. The 3 white dots had gathered together a long time ago. They had formed a team and were training in the survival domain. Talk. Lin Feng directly contacted Hu Jinyu. Drip. On that side, the call was instantly connected. Haha, Hu Jinyu's hearty laughter sounded in his ears. Busy man, you finally thought of us. Lin Feng couldn't help but smile, feeling some warmth in his heart. How is it? Is everyone all right? We're fine, don't worry. Hu Jinyu smiled. We've already hunted 2 survival crystals. Just 1 more, and we'll be able to pass the survival zone. That's good. Lin Feng smiled. He already knew that Hu Jinyu's goal was to obtain 3 survival crystals and pass the test. After all, staying in the survival zone for 40 years to gather enough survival points was actually a very dangerous task. On the other hand, hunting giant vicious beasts would be much easier. First, they had more people, so they could attract the giant vicious beasts. Second, the 3 of them could work together and avoid the giant vicious beasts if they were too strong. Third, the giant vicious beasts had no intelligence, so they were much easier to deal with compared to the god-slaying training camp's cultivators. If it's not enough, I have survival crystals here, Lin Feng said. Oh, great. If we really can't hunt, we'll ask you, the rich man. Hu Jinyu didn't decline and smiled. How is it, Brother Lin? How's your harvest in these 10 years? Not good. Lin Feng shook his head. It's okay. It's just the beginning. Hu Jinyu encouraged. Lin Feng nodded. I only met 5 god-slaying training camp cultivators, and 2 of them ran away. I didn't even get 10 survival crystals. The voice on the other side suddenly stopped. After a long time, Hu Jinyu's stunned voice came. You met 5 god-slaying training camp cultivators? Yes, Lin Feng replied. Hu Jinyu said woodenly. 2 ran away, then the remaining 3 are killed. Lin Feng said, according to the survival zone's rules, regardless of whether there was a death immortal puppet or not, it was counted as a kill. Hu Jinyu sucked in a breath of cold air. Oh my god, the hidden venerable training camp's cultivators have to hide when they see the god-slaying training camp. You, on the other hand, killed 3 of them and made 2 run away. Lin Feng thought of the 2 that ran away and couldn't help but sigh. Their cultivators are really hard to kill. Hu Jinyu was already rolling his eyes. What did he mean by hard to kill? The 2 of them weren't talking on the same channel. When they saw the hidden venerable training camp's cultivators, they couldn't wait to hide. So what's your survival points now? Hu Jinyu couldn't help but ask. Exactly 1,200 points. Lin Feng said. Hiss, Hu Jinyu's expression changed, and he sucked in a breath of cold air. 1,200 survival points. All 3 of them had 10 survival points, given by the top AI. Compared to Lin Feng, their survival points were simply a joke. You are amazing. Hu Jinyu felt a deep blow to himself. The corner of his mouth twitched. How many survival crystals do you have? Do you have 3? 6. Lin Feng said. Oh. Hu Jinyu touched his forehead. His hands seemed to be covered in cold sweat. He looked at Qi Ruolin and Ouyangyi with a bitter smile and shook his head helplessly. The 3 of them had worked hard to hunt for 2 survival crystals. Compared to Lin Feng, the difference was too big. It was really infuriating to compare oneself to others. By the way, Brother Hu, have you found a king's domain? Lin Feng asked. Yes, why are you asking this? Hu Jinyu replied without hesitation. Lin Feng's heart jumped, and his eyes lit up. As expected, his luck was bad, but it didn't mean that the other cultivators' luck was bad. Hu Jinyu, Little Fox, and the others had indeed encountered a king's domain. Do you still remember the location? Lin Feng asked. Yes, Hu Jinyu replied. Suddenly, he was startled. Brother Lin, don't tell me you want to go there. Yes, Lin Feng said directly. Can you take me there? Hu Jinyu couldn't help but say, that's a king's domain. Brother Lin, there's more than one beast king whose strength has reached the threshold of venerable. Are you sure you want to go? Yes, Lin Feng nodded. Without a beast king, he didn't want to go. Chapter 2465. Yuan Shiyu gulped. Brother Lin, your strength can't be comparable to Beast King, right? Yuan Shiyu didn't know what he was saying. Comparable to the ferocious Beast King? That was the strength of a beginner venerable. Top 100 on the ranking board. Lin Feng, was he that strong now? No. Lin Feng smiled. Yuan Shiyu couldn't help but sigh. If that was the case, it would be too terrifying. However, you should be able to fight Beast King. Lin Feng's voice rang in his ears. Yuan Shiyu's eyes widened. He was dumbfounded. Lin Feng wasn't afraid of Beast King. Although Beast King was a beginner venerable, it didn't have intelligence. It only knew how to kill. It couldn't compare to a beginner venerable cultivator. His strength had already reached the peak invincible divine lord level. He wasn't that far from the beginner venerable. He could definitely fight Beast King. Even if he couldn't win, he could at least keep his life. After ending the call with Yuan Shiyu, Lin Feng stopped and floated in the air. Ancient City, King's Domain. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he looked at the map on the hidden venerable Luo crystal. With his current position, it would take him about 6 years to reach Yuan Shiyu's location. And from Yuan Shiyu's current position, it would take him 4 to 5 years to reach the King's Domain. About 10 years, Lin Feng thought. There was no need to hesitate. Since there was this chance, he had to grasp it. Even if he continued to circle around here, it didn't mean he would find it in 10 years. On the other hand, as long as he met Yuan Shiyu's group 6 years later, it would take him another 4 to 5 years to find the King's Domain. One was uncertain, one was certain. There was no need to choose. Finding a King's Domain in 10 years was definitely worth it. After all, he had set the survival crystals as a target of 50 years. When he reached the King's Domain, it would only be 20 years. There was more than enough time. As for wasting 10 years of Yuan Shiyu's group's time, he would give them 2 survival crystals as compensation. Whoosh! Lin Feng sped towards where Hu Jinyu was. His target was clear. It was not that he had given up, but that he had changed his target. If he had enough time, he could come back and search again. In a survival realm, there was a glacier as smooth as a mirror. Beautiful ice sculptures stood tall and lifelike. Giant beasts sealed in ice could be seen everywhere, as if they were frozen and made into specimens. Huge ice palaces explained the beauty of the buildings, making people unable to take their eyes off them. The smooth ground could clearly show the appearance of every cultivator. At this moment, there was a cultivator flying at high speed above. His stature was very short, and he had a pair of black butterfly-like wings on his back. He was flying at a low altitude at an extremely fast speed. Behind him, there were continuous roars. It was an extremely ferocious beast king that was chasing after him. "Big guy, why are you chasing me? Go after Air Luo and his gang." The black-winged youth muttered unhappily. Even so, he still could not stop. After all, he was ranked in the top 1,000 in the God-slaying training camp. In terms of strength, he was not as strong as the Beast King. If he could fight, he would have already fought with the Beast King. Damn it! If it continues to chase me, all the treasures will be taken away by Air Luo and his gang. The black-winged youth muttered. His body flashed with a black light, wrapped in blood, and the space fluctuated violently. Suddenly, with a swoosh, he disappeared from where he was. Indeterminate space teleportation. Roar! The ferocious Beast King, which resembled a white bear, roared furiously. It stared at the void with its 2 horns and looked around, but it could no longer find any trace of the black-winged youth. Although it was a Beast King, its intelligence was not even comparable to that of an ordinary human. Whoosh! 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 At this time, the black-winged youth was continuously performing indeterminate space teleportation, which was rapidly changing his position in the same area. It was equivalent to continuous teleportation. However, different from teleportation, it changed space in a small area, and the speed was very fast, so it was safe. Unless the opponent happened to be lying in ambush, the possibility of being killed was very small. The most important thing was that when the inertia of continuous teleportation disappeared, he could freely stop. Glaciers, ice palaces, and ice sculptures kept appearing in front of him. The black-winged youth was familiar with this place. After all, he had been in this king's domain for more than 10 days. He had entered almost at the same time as Air Luo's group. This was an unexplored king's domain, and there were many unknown treasures. I finally got rid of that big guy. I hope it will chase after Air Luo and his gang. Then I will have time to search for treasures. The black-winged youth grinned. Suddenly, everything in front of him turned dark. The endless glaciers disappeared in an instant and were replaced by a boundless darkness. It was like a black imperial palace, and its aura suddenly became different. What? The black-winged youth was stunned and stopped. Although the indefinite spatial teleportation was not directional, it would definitely be carried out within the same area, within a small area. Originally, he was in the king's domain, and it was impossible for him to leave the king's domain. Moreover, even if he left, it was impossible for him to change the surrounding environment. What was going on? The black-winged youth widened his eyes and looked at his feet in horror. At this time, the light of the domain seemed to have changed from white to black, and from the ordinary hexagonal pattern to a complicated 18-sided pattern. The secret pattern of the domain was extremely complicated. Where is he? How'd he come here? Asked Big Brother. The black-winged youth felt a little uneasy, but with some excitement, he quickly connected to the god-slaying crystal. Beep. Speak. A low voice came from the other side of the god-slaying crystal. Big Brother, I found a strange place. The black-winged youth told the truth about what had just happened. He and his big brother were brothers, and they were very close. They had entered the deicide training camp together. However, his talent was slightly worse, and he was only ranked 3,572. His big brother, on the other hand, was a super expert on the deicide training camp's ranking list. 95th, Yi Xiushui. After a while, the god-slaying crystal said in a low voice, "If I'm not wrong, you should have entered the king's domain by accident." The king's domain. The black-winged youth's eyes widened, and his expression changed greatly. "Run." Yi Xiushui's low voice came from the god-slaying crystal, with a hint of urgency and worry. "Wait for me. Don't let the ferocious beast emperor." A bright red peony bloomed in the darkness. The black-winged youth happened to be talking to his big brother, Yi Xiushui. In an instant, his eyes widened, his body trembled violently, and he spat out blood. A beautiful crystal-like puppet appeared in the void, and the black-winged youth fell to the ground, completely unaware of what had happened. Chapter 2466. Luck was something that was hard to predict. When they didn't come, they wouldn't come no matter what. But when they came, they would often come in groups. Lin Feng, who was rushing to meet up with Yuan Shiyu, suddenly slowed down and looked into the distance in shock. He could see a beautiful and transparent white, like the land of a white glacier. Even from so far away, he could see the smooth, mirror-like ground, reflecting the beautiful light. This was a strange area that made people unable to look away. In the survival zone, most of the king domains had a distinctive characteristic different from the rest. Therefore, Lin Feng had entered the boundless lake, the tower-shaped mountain peak, the vast sea of trees, and so on. But without exception, none of them were king domains. But this time, this white glacier gave Lin Feng a different feeling. It was an indescribable attraction, an indescribable feeling. With his extraordinary intuition and perception, Lin Feng changed direction almost without thinking and rushed toward the white glacier. This time it was real. Lin Feng entered the white glacier. In an instant, a strange energy covered him. A hexagonal white light appeared under his feet, and a faint barrier appeared behind him. It was as if he had entered a new area. King Domain. Lin Feng couldn't help but laugh. He had searched for a full 10 years and couldn't find any of them. Now, he had just received news of a king domain from Yuan Shiyu, and he just happened to bump into another one on the way, who said that blessings never come in pairs. 2 king domains. Lin Feng was very satisfied. He naturally wouldn't complain about this kind of opportunity. After all, exploring a king domain didn't take much time. It could be as short as 10 days, or as long as 1 or 2 years. My luck has finally blossomed. Lin Feng smiled. On Yuan Shiyu's side, strictly speaking, it wasn't his luck. But now, it was his luck without a doubt. Judging from the energy and restriction of the domain, it should be a king domain. Lin Feng could clearly feel that the king's domain boosted the strength of the giant ferocious beasts. Moreover, within the king's domain, he had nowhere to hide and was known by all the giant ferocious beasts. This was rather terrifying, because there must be a beast king in the king's domain, and there must be more than one. Just the horde of ferocious beast overlords alone was enough to make a cultivator suffer. But to Lin Feng, this was a dream come true. Other cultivators could only exchange for 30 survival crystals at most, but as he was a newcomer, he could exchange for twice that, a total of 60 survival crystals. 6,000 hidden revered points. One had to know that Lin Feng only had 3,987 Qian Zun points left. Qian revered points were too precious, and the further one progressed, the harder it would be to obtain Qian revered points. The newbie stage was the best time to obtain hidden revered points. I hope no one has discovered this place yet. Lin Feng hoped. Whether a king's domain had been discovered or not was a completely different matter. The king's domains that had been discovered were probably the most difficult to deal with, the ferocious beast kings, and some treasures that were hard to obtain. But the king's domains that had not been discovered not only had many giant ferocious beasts and ferocious beast overlords, but also treasures that were easy to obtain. So, Lin Feng quickly sped forward, a transparent light appearing on the surface of his body. It was the piercing bone domain. Within the king's domain, all domains would be suppressed. Even the domain of a peak heavenly law treasure wouldn't be able to do much. But compared to a peak heavenly law treasure, at least a peak heavenly law treasure could protect him. Right now, Lin Feng's Twilight Domain would be useless, but the piercing bone domain would at least have some offensive power. Moreover, the domain itself was the best aura detection tool. Facing this glacial region that had a high probability of having a ferocious beast king, Lin Feng didn't dare to be careless. After all, with his current combat strength, it was really difficult to deal with the ferocious beast king. What a slippery ground. It's a bit difficult to step on. Lin Feng sped away from the ground. He couldn't use his strength on such ground, so it was better to use his strength in the air. He quickly glanced around. There were ice sculptures everywhere, and each one was lifelike. They seemed to contain a special heavenly law, but he had to immerse himself in them to comprehend them. He had a vague feeling, but he couldn't concentrate at this time. Actually, these ice sculptures are also treasures. Lin Feng's comprehension was amazing. He could completely see through them. If he were outside, these ice sculptures would be very valuable. The heavenly law comprehended by looking at these ice sculptures was far more amazing than what he had gained in the dangerous heaven region. It was just that there was too little time. Moreover, there was danger at every moment in the king's domain. There was no time for him to comprehend. Take them away? No. Lin Feng secretly felt that it was a pity. These ice sculptures were connected to the king's domain. They were like a perfect whole, inseparable. It was impossible to take away these ice sculptures alone. Obviously, the Venerable intended to do so. He probably wants to give the latecomers some basic benefits, Lin Feng thought. Even if all the treasures here were taken away and the ferocious beasts were all dead, at least there were still some heavenly laws to comprehend. It was a worthwhile trip. Lin Feng guessed right. These ice sculptures were indeed placed by the Venerable. They were the work of a master ice sculptor at the level of Huang Zun. Naturally, they were extraordinary. With Huang Zun's understanding of the heavenly law, he could make them appear in ice sculptures instead of giving a vague lecture. It was twice the result with half the effort. Unfortunately, this master ice sculptor at the level of Huang Zun set up restrictions and didn't want to let the ice sculptures out. With his status, any one of these ice sculptures was a priceless treasure. Its real value was comparable to that of a peak-level heavenly law supreme treasure. In the realm of life, it was not so easy to obtain a peak-level heavenly law supreme treasure. Frozen, ferocious beasts. Their expressions and movements are well preserved. The heavenly law supreme treasure is too profound. The essence of the heavenly law of the universe? Or something else? Lin Feng felt a lot of emotions along the way. These frozen ferocious beasts were living specimens, but they seemed a little different from the ice sculptures. However, they were closer to the level of a peak-level divine master and easier to grasp. Looking at the essence of their frozen, ferocious beasts was like using the tip of a finger to open a window and see the origin of the heavenly law supreme treasure. He could use these frozen, ferocious beasts to create saber techniques and comprehend the heavenly law supreme treasure. Where are the treasures? Lin Feng knew that what he needed to do now was not to cultivate here, but to search for the treasures in the king's domain. I've been running for so long, but I haven't seen a single ferocious beast. Lin Feng had a faint, ominous premonition in his heart. If this king's domain had not been explored, then he would have at least encountered a ferocious beast by now. But until now, there was nothing. Qi. The bone-piercing domain seemed to fluctuate. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Chapter 2467. It's the other cultivators. And there's more than one. What a strong aura, what is that? Before the naked eye could see it, the piercing bone domain had already sensed it. The fluctuating spatial energy resonated with the surrounding space, allowing it to explore a relatively large area. In addition to the three cultivators, Lin Feng also detected two abnormally terrifying auras, Ferocious Beast King. 5 auras were moving at an extremely fast speed. It was obvious that the 2 Ferocious Beast King were chasing after the 3 cultivators. Lin Feng reacted in an instant and ran away. He wasn't an idiot. 1 Ferocious Beast King was already very scary. 2. Wasn't that courting death? What's more, the identities of the 3 cultivators were unknown. It didn't matter if they were from the Hidden Saint training camp or not. It was best to avoid them first to avoid getting into trouble. So, I'm not the first one to explore this king's domain. Lin Feng quickly distanced himself. Although he had sensed the 3 cultivators and the 2 ferocious beast king, the other party must have sensed him as well. However, the other party couldn't even take care of themselves right now. Saving their lives was more important. How could they have the time to care about him? As for the 2 ferocious beast king, he didn't have to worry about them. There were 3 cultivators over there, and he was the only one here. The ferocious beast king would definitely not find trouble with him. Moreover, it was the 3 cultivators who had provoked the ferocious beast king. Generally, the king's domain has at least 2 to 3 ferocious beast king, and at most 8 to 10 ferocious beast king. But even if there were 8 to 10 ferocious beast king, they wouldn't gather together. In this part of the king's domain, it's estimated that 2 ferocious beast king is the limit. Quickly circling around in a U shape, Lin Feng turned back. Where would the treasure of the king's domain be? It could exist anywhere, but the most likely location of the most valuable treasure was usually where the ferocious beast king was. The reason why the 3 cultivators had provoked the beast king could not be ruled out because the beast king had directly come looking for trouble with them. However, there was a high probability that they had found the beast king's lair and coveted its treasures, causing them to be hunted down by the beast king. Kill it with a counterattack. Swish! Lin Feng's eyes were exquisite, and his speed was extremely fast. Whoosh! 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 3 one-eyed creatures with long golden braids were running at high speed. The one in the lead had deep wrinkles on his eye, and he was the strongest among them. He was Air Luo, who the black-winged youth had mentioned before. He ranked 3,813th in the Godslayer training camp, almost the same as the black-winged youth. The other 2 single-eyed creatures with long golden braids belonged to the same clan as Air Luo, the black-eyed clan. This clan was born with the ability to control space, and they were good at close combat. Their strength was not weak at all, and their understanding of the strength Heavenly Tao was also quite outstanding. They were a clan with comprehensive talents. Even so, it was still difficult for the 3 black-eyed clan experts to kill the Beast King. Hey, was that Aura Yishoan? Air Luo shouted. Yishoan was the black-winged youth from before. He had entered the king's domain at the same time as Air Luo and the other 2, so they knew each other's existence. No, Air Luo denied directly. Among the 3, his sensing ability was the most outstanding because he had a peak-level Heavenly Tao treasure that was proficient in sensing auras. It seems to be a human. Air Luo's single eye shone. I only saw a blurry shadow, but judging from the aura, it's most likely a human cultivator. I just don't know if it's from our training camp. Air Luo snorted angrily. That bastard ran really fast. When he had sensed the aura, his first reaction was to lure the Beast King over. Even if he could not attract the enemy's attention, he could at least share the pressure. Who would have thought that the cultivator was so cunning that he would run away directly? Humans have always been smart, Air Luo said. Lucky bastard. Air Luo gritted his teeth. One more incense burner, one more ghost. Yishoan is already annoying enough, and now there's a human. Air Luo was extremely unhappy. There were only so many treasures in the king's domain. If you took them, they would be gone. The rule of the survival domain was that no one could steal the treasures. They belonged to whoever took them. It's useless, Air Luo said. We've killed all the ferocious beasts and ferocious beast kings. We've taken the majority of the treasures, and Yishoan took the minority. We've searched the entire king's domain. That human didn't get anything. No, there's more, Air Luo said with a serious expression. There's still the most valuable treasure. Who can take that treasure? Air Luo immediately denied. There are 4 ferocious beast king. One went to find Yishoan, 2 are behind us, and 1 is squatting in a nest. Think of a way. We must get it. Air Luo gritted his teeth. All the treasures here combined cannot compare to that 3-leaf soul grass. Air Luo and Air Luo's expressions turned serious. Indeed, the treasures they had, even if they added the treasures Yishiowen had obtained, could not compare to the value of the three-leaf soul grass. As for a true treasure, a single one was already the limit. But Luo, speaking of which, on the other side of the king's domain, what kind of treasure are the 6 beast kings guarding? Luo asked. I don't know either. Luo shook his head. The greater the number of ferocious beast kings guarding it, the higher the value of the treasure. This is the king's domain of the top 10 ferocious beast kings. The treasure over there must be extremely valuable. Luo said, don't be wishful thinking. We can't even deal with the 2 behind us. Ah, roar! Roar! Of the 2 ferocious beast kings, one had huge wings that covered the entire sky, while the other had 3 heads, each of which was spitting out purple lightning. They were chasing after Luo and the other 2 in a frenzy. That's enough distance, Luo Pong. Luo shouted. Your defense is the strongest. Quickly go to the ferocious beast king's nest and retrieve that treasure. Luo, and I will hold the fort here. Go. Okay. Erping's eyes turned cold, and his figure suddenly changed. As Luo and Erquin attacked the 2 ferocious beast kings, he turned back. This was the plan they had decided on earlier, luring the snake out of its hole. Whoosh! Lin Feng's speed was astonishing as he went straight for the beast king's nest. Although he did not know the exact location of the nest, he could determine the route the 2 ferocious beast king and the 3 cultivators were taking from the airflow fluctuations of the king's domain. That was already enough. Although the energy fluctuations became smaller as he went further, Lin Feng could vaguely feel that he was slowly approaching his target and getting closer and closer. A terrifying and powerful aura seemed to be not far away. It was very similar to what he had sensed before. Roar! A deafening sound rang in his ears. It was a huge monster with 3 elephant trunks. A pair of green eyes, covered in scales, shot a beam of light from afar. The Ferocious Beast King. Chapter 2468. Pung. Lin Feng blocked the terrifying light as if it could penetrate his soul. What a strong time law. Cold sweat dripped down Lin Feng's forehead as he retreated. In that instant, it was as if time had stopped. In the next instant, that terrifying beam of light appeared before him. If he hadn't been prepared, he would have been seriously injured by that attack. The first ferocious beast king. Lin Feng had killed countless ferocious beasts and many ferocious beast overlords, but he had never met a ferocious beast king. After all, there were very few ferocious beast king in other parts of the survival zone. So this is the top 100 of the training camp, a combat power comparable to the threshold of a venerable. Lin Feng had been prepared for this. The moment he saw the 3 cultivators, he knew that if there were any ferocious beasts left in this beast king's domain, it would only be a ferocious beast king. Its universal talent was too terrifying. It was much stronger than the ferocious beast overlord's talent. As for the ferocious beasts, it could not be compared at all. Only such a ferocious beast core would be useful. Chi! The moment Lin Feng dodged, he turned his hand and slashed Aurora, absolute speed. At an astonishing speed, filled with Aurora's way of the heavens, it landed on the scales of the ferocious beast king with 3 elephant trunks. Clang! It was like metal colliding. However, it was unscathed. What a sturdy armor. Lin Feng's heart trembled. He instantly changed his position and dodged the whip-like elephant trunks. He expected the ferocious beast king to have an amazing defense. He could tell from its body shape and attack method. Whoosh! 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 Lin Feng quickly changed his position. The afterimages behind him were constantly smashed into pieces by the 3 elephant trunks. From time to time, the universal talent light, like the first time, would shoot out from the ferocious beast king's eyes. However, Lin Feng, who was prepared, would not be hit. After putting some distance between them, Lin Feng's expression was as calm as an ancient well. He didn't panic at all. Indeed, in terms of strength, he was not as good as the ferocious beast king. But what did the ferocious beast lack the most? Wisdom. They were a race that only knew how to kill. They only knew how to act instinctively, or they were given the will of the Venerable One. For example, guarding the treasure. There must be treasures in the cave behind it. Lin Feng could faintly sense soul fluctuations. If his senses weren't wrong, this should be a treasure related to the soul. Something that the Beast King was guarding was obviously not an ordinary item. It must be much more precious than the treasures that were scattered all over the king's domain. However, the giant Beast King, who had 3 elephant trunks and was proficient in time innate secret techniques, refused to come out. Just like that, they stood guard at the cave entrance and attacked from afar. Its speed isn't fast, so that must be its weakness, but Lin Feng was also helpless. If he could lure it out, he could use his speed to enter the cave and obtain the treasure, then use his speed to escape. Although he wasn't its opponent, it definitely wouldn't be able to kill him. But now, it refused to come out and stood guard at the cave entrance. Not to mention obtaining the treasure. Even entering the cave was incomparably difficult. Including the 2 from before, there are actually 3 Beast King guarding the treasure in this cave. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He obviously knew the characteristics of the treasures in the king's domain. The more Beast King guards there were, the more precious the treasure was. But what Lin Feng didn't know was that the treasure in this cave was actually guarded by 4 ferocious Beast King. It was just that there was still one that was chasing after the black-winged youth, Yi Xiuan. There's not much time left. Those 3 cultivators will return at any time. We have to end this quickly and obtain the treasure before they do. Lin Feng understood the other party's thoughts. It was 3 against 2. They clearly wanted to lure the 2 Beast King out of the cave and create enough distance. Now, one of them had probably returned to retrieve the treasure. How would they retrieve it? Fight head-on. Lin Feng continuously dodged the Beast King's attacks. He frowned slightly. He could get close to the Beast King and fight it head-on. Then, when it was unprepared, he could enter the cave and obtain the treasure. But this Beast King's body was too huge, and such a huge body had incomparably dense attack power. Once he entered the cave, it would be like entering a dead end. There was an 80 to 90% chance that he would be stuck inside. Unless he could kill this Beast King, this method was too risky. Feeling a chill behind him, Lin Feng knew that he didn't have much time left. But he wasn't good at defense. Going in alone was too risky. Although he had a 50% chance of surviving, was it worth it to use that chance to obtain a treasure? It's not worth it. Lin Feng instantly made a decision. His mind was clear, and he wasn't blinded by the treasure. Taking a step back, even if he obtained the treasure, it might not be useful to him. My main goal in entering the survival zone is to obtain hidden revered points and a newcomer's ranking. Treasures are only secondary. Lin Feng clashed with the Beast King and quickly retreated. Shua. As the distance between them increased, he heard the Beast King's angry roars, but it didn't chase after him. It must have been given a mission by the Venerable One. Lin Feng instantly judged, but he wasn't disappointed. Instead, he was exceptionally clear-headed. If I'm not wrong, one of the 3 cultivators just now will appear soon. The one that appears must be very good at defense. Let it be the bait. Lin Feng had basically given up on the treasure. But that didn't mean that he had to give up on other things. Other than the treasure, this Beast King would definitely have a survival crystal. Moreover, he liked its Beast King's original core very much. Furthermore, he might even be able to obtain additional survival points. It seemed that the cultivator was from the god-slaying training camp. Shua. Lin Feng quietly retreated. He estimated the distance in his heart and didn't use bone-piercing domain. Domain was a double-edged sword. He could sense the opponent, but the opponent could also sense him. It wasn't suitable to use it now. Since he wanted to be the Oriole, he couldn't let the Mantis know that he was behind him. It didn't matter if he couldn't sense it. Because there would be fluctuations in energy, the battle would definitely cause changes in the area, especially. The roar of this ferocious Beast King is quite loud. Lin Feng smiled. At this time, he heard the weak roars of the 3 elephant-nosed Beast King. It was because they were far away. Just as he had expected, they started fighting. Now I can get closer. Lin Feng slowly closed the distance. He wasn't afraid that the opponent would sense him because he had to deal with the Beast King. He couldn't even take care of himself. In the midst of an intense battle, he didn't have time to care about anything else. Shua, shua. Lin Feng continued to close in, his eyes slightly lit up. The line of sight in front of him opened up. Very good. It's a cultivator from the god-slaying training camp. Lin Feng's lips curled up. Chapter 2469. Lin Feng might have had some misgivings if his opponent was from the hidden venerable training camp instead of the god-slayer training camp. After all, they were all from the same training camp. However, since his opponent was from the god-slayer training camp, there was nothing to be concerned about. The survival realm was a place where people met on the battlefield. Dark Eye Clan expert. Lin Feng recognized it at a glance. Although the human, demon, and devil races were the three largest races in the seventh god world, there were still many other races with extraordinary aptitudes and talents, and there were quite a few of them. The Dark Eye Clan was one of them. Their golden braided eye was their most distinctive feature. Without fighting, no one knew who was stronger and who was weaker. However, Lin Feng knew that the other party's strength was definitely not as strong as the ferocious Beast Kings. Otherwise, the two ferocious Beast Kings would not have been chased all over the king's domain. As long as two of them kept one of the ferocious Beast Kings busy, they could kill the other in a one-on-one battle. Three God Slayer training camp cultivators were no match for the two ferocious Beast King even in a 3-on-2 battle, let alone a one-on-one battle. Even if they were strong, they would not be that strong. At most, they would be on the same level as him. Peak Divine Lords were invincible. Lin Feng looked down from above. He had no intention of joining the battle for the time being. The Dark Eye Clan expert had already used his space secret technique. The defense of a peak Heavenly Law treasure was fully exposed. He was in close combat with the three-trunked ferocious Beast King. However, the Beast King seemed to know the Dark Eye Clan expert's goal and guarded the cave tightly. Its body was too huge. Although there were still small gaps to enter the cave, if the Dark Eye Clan expert tried to force his way in, he would be attacked by the ferocious Beast King. At that time, he would not even be able to protect himself, let alone obtain the treasure. Good at defense. Looking for a chance to enter the cave? Lin Feng looked calm. It was similar to what he had expected. However, the Dark Eye Clan expert had the space secret technique. Apart from defense, he could also use space secret technique. It would be much easier for him to obtain the treasure. In terms of ability to obtain the treasure in the cave, Lin Feng was no match for him. Consume more energy. Lin Feng was happy to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Regardless of whether he joined the battle or not, at least it wouldn't harm him in any way. Naturally, it would be best if he could gain something from it. Even if he didn't get anything in the end, it didn't matter. At least he got to see the tyrannical strength of the Beast King, so this trip wasn't in vain. Pung! Boom! The Black Eye Clan's powerhouse and the Beast King fought with all their might, and the cave was starting to crack. Although the Black Eye Clan's powerhouse couldn't injure the Beast King due to the difference in their strength, his defense was exceptionally shocking. He had consumed a lot of the Beast King's strength. The peak Heavenly Dao treasure battle armor is already at 120% of its power. Lin Feng sighed. He didn't have enough time. He couldn't even bring out the 100% defense of the perishing savage armor. This Dark Eye Clan elite had utilized the potential of a peak Heavenly Way treasure to the extreme. One piece was worth more than several pieces. Oh! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. As a golden light burst out, the Dark Eye Clan's powerhouse aimed for a gap. He took the Beast King's explosive attack head-on and entered the cave despite being injured. This angered the Beast King to the extreme. Whoosh! A red light bloomed on the surface of the Beast King's body. It was like a crazy, scorching sun. There's such a move? Lin Feng's eyes widened. His heart skipped a beat. The red light shrouded the Beast King's body and shrunk by almost half. However, its strength, speed, and combat ability suddenly increased. Even its speed, which was originally the weakest, became extremely terrifying. That guy's going to be unlucky. Lin Feng made a judgment in his heart and rushed out in a split second. Fortunately, he didn't rush in recklessly. Otherwise, he would be the unlucky one. The Beast King's combat ability was already at the threshold of a venerable. Now that it had fully erupted, The Beast King's combat ability was probably close to that of a real venerable. Because the cave was small, the Beast King's body was too big. Once the enemy entered the cave, it wouldn't be able to protect the treasure. However, now that its body had shrunk by half, it could easily enter the cave and use the attack method it was best at to fight inside. Strength, defense, terrifying close-range combat. The space in the cave was even smaller. It was undoubtedly disadvantageous for the Dark Eye Clan elite, who was known for its agility. Whoosh! Lin Feng stopped outside for less than 10 seconds before he arrived at the cave. He wasn't doing this out of kindness, and it was impossible for him to save the trainees of the Deicide training camp. However, if the Dark Eye Clan's experts were killed, it wouldn't do him any good. Not to mention, he would have to face the terrifying Dire Beast King alone. Now was the right time. The Dark Eye Clan elite's aura had weakened by more than half. Facing the crazy Beast King, it couldn't continue and couldn't resist anymore. Lin Feng didn't hesitate and directly opened the 4 layers of seals. The white battle blade shone like a crystal. At this time, it was full of vigorous combat ability, like an emperor descending. Aurora absolute speed. The moment Lin Feng arrived, the aurora had already shrouded the entire cave. The heavenly way of the Minute Realm was accompanied by the heavenly way of chaos. Under the eruption of the third heaven of light and darkness, a powerful force was displayed, directly attacking the ferocious Beast King's abdomen. Chi! The blade was extremely fast. This was Lin Feng's fastest blade, and also the first move of Aurora's blade technique. The moment Dean opened the seal, Lin Feng had already aimed at the Beast King's weakness, 3 inches from its waist and abdomen that wasn't covered by scales. The flashing red light strengthened the Beast King's combat ability, but it didn't strengthen its weak defense. The blade light was extremely condensed. Under the instant explosion of Lin Feng's tyrannical power, it directly slashed through the exposed skin of the Beast King. Chi! Blood spurted wildly, and the Beast King roared in anger. Poor Erpeng was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Now it was seriously injured by the Beast King's flashing red palm, and it was being vented miserably. More than half of the golden armor, a peak way of the heaven's treasure, was shattered. Its power was so terrifying. Lin Feng's movements were too fast, and he did not give the ferocious Beast King any chance to counterattack. The Warsaber D's space sigils and time sigils strengthened his attacks. Aurora Ray flashed past the ferocious Beast King's tiny wounds again and again, and it was as if he was sprinkling salt on the wounds, which kept expanding. Blood spurted wildly, and the red light had already dimmed in just a few short slashes. This was the effect of a berserk state, and it was originally a short burst of power. The Beast King's injuries worsened, and the red light disappeared. Roar! The Beast King roared furiously and gave up on Erpeng and attacked Lin Feng, who had plotted against it. However, it was already too late. After the full burst of power, it was no longer a match for Lin Feng, and its weakness was completely grasped. Chi! Dean revealed his loftiness, and Aurora enveloped the cave. PFFF. Blood spurted out. The ferocious Beast King with 3 elephant trunks fell to the ground with a loud bang, dying miserably in the cave. Chapter 2470. The 7th Survival Crystal. 1250 Survival Points. Lin Feng killed the giant, ferocious Beast King, so he naturally would not show mercy. He directly stabbed the heavily injured and unconscious Erpeng. Even though the other party had the death immortal puppet to preserve his life, the test of the survival region for this era had already ended. His survival points are really high. Lin Feng sighed. Killing half of the black-eyed race expert gave him 1250 survival points. He had only accumulated 1,200 survival points in the past 10 years. This one kill was more than what he had gained in the past 10 years. It's still better to kill opponents with similar strength to get more survival points. If he faced this black-eyed race expert head-on, he might be able to defeat him, but it would be difficult to kill him. This time, it was all thanks to the ferocious Beast King that helped him imperceptibly. At the same time, it also proved that his thoughts were correct. In the first 50 years, there was no need to earn survival points. As time went on, the god-slaying training camp cultivators would accumulate more survival points. By then, it would be much easier to earn survival points. The Ferocious Beast King's ferocious original core. Lin Feng took out a beautiful crystal diamond. Complex runes covered the surface of the crystal diamond, which contained a rich, secret technique of the law of time. The Ferocious Beast King had a 50% chance of obtaining a survival crystal. The Ferocious Beast King had a 100% survival crystal. The Ferocious Beast King also had a 100% survival crystal. What was the difference? It was this ferocious original core. The difference in value was like heaven and earth. The Ferocious Beast King's ferocious original core rarely had time or space elements. However, the Ferocious Beast King and Ferocious Beast King's ferocious original cores usually had time or space elements. The hidden heavenly Tao of the universe must contain precise heavenly Tao of time or heavenly Tao of space. Refining and comprehending had a high chance of becoming a time or space sovereign. Of course, this still depended on one's own talent. However, even if one couldn't comprehend the heavenly Tao of space and become a sovereign, the power of the secret technique after refining would be far greater than the Ferocious Beast King's ferocious original core. This secret technique fuses time and light. Just by itself, it's very difficult to comprehend the time heavenly Tao. Lin Feng put the giant ominous core into the hidden Exalt Luo crystal. The more fused a secret technique, the harder it was to separate and comprehend the heavenly Tao. In terms of becoming a time sage, this ferocious prime core was not of much use. But for him, it was quite good. The fusion of time and light. The attack is mainly based on light, and time is secondary. If I can comprehend it, it will be very beneficial to the creation of Aurora's blade technique. Lin Feng clearly remembered that terrifying light. It was as if it could pierce through the soul. The law of time was compatible with one's soul and could easily affect one's mind. And this was only with the great vicious Beast King's soul. If it was his own soul, it would be even more powerful. Previously, he had a one-on-one fight with this Beast King. In a situation where he was caught off guard, he was almost seriously injured by its universal talent secret technique. Although he was not afraid after he was prepared, it was undeniable that this technique was really strong. The thought flashed through his mind. Lin Feng didn't waste any time on the origin core, because he had more important things to do. The Dark Eye Clan's powerhouse shouldn't have time to get the treasure. Lin Feng had a panoramic view of the battle just now. Although the Dark Eye Clan's powerhouse desperately entered the cave, he thought that he could quickly find the treasure. He didn't expect the great vicious Beast King to go crazy and activate its bloodline talent, shrinking its body to increase its combat power. From head to toe, the Dark Eye Clan's powerhouse had no chance. Because he was caught off guard, he was seriously injured by the great vicious Beast King and fainted. Even if he didn't appear, he would be killed by the great vicious Beast King and wouldn't be able to get the treasure. Whoosh! Lin Feng entered the depths of the cave. Although there were many paths in the cave, he had already sensed the only path. It was a gentle call from the depths of his soul. It was clear and direct. This was a soul-type treasure. Soul, immortal grass? A green crystal grass appeared in Lin Feng's mind. This was one of the top treasures that had appeared in the survival realm. One could greatly improve the quality of one's soul. Impossible, a treasure like the soul immortal grass would only appear in the king domain. Lin Feng smiled faintly. In the blink of an eye, he had already reached the deepest part of the cave. On a barren, brownish-yellow patch of grass, there were 3 branches with 3 delicate leaves swaying gently. There was only one stalk, but in the depths of this empty cave, the yellow light was incomparably eye-catching. Pa! Lin Feng directly picked it and put it into the hidden revered Luo Jing. Hua! The hidden revered Luo Jing flashed, and a clear message appeared. 3-leaf lemon soul grass. Eating the leaves will increase soul control. Eating the main stem will increase soul quality. Estimated value: 2,000 revered points. The hidden revered Luo Jing connected to the top AI and had the detailed information of every treasure. A treasure worth 2,000 revered points. Lin Feng couldn't help but sigh. Lin Feng did not have the time to think carefully. The moment he plucked the 3-leaf soul grass, Lin Feng rushed out of the cave. His figure suddenly flashed and disappeared from the ferocious Beast King's lair. After a while, whoosh, whoosh, 2 scarred figures rushed over. They had a golden braid and a strong power gathered in one eye. They were the other 2 experts of the Dark Eye race, Er Luo and Er Kun. Their expressions were ugly. Roar, roar. Behind them, the 2 great vicious Beast King were still chasing after them. Their attacks were terrifying. Peng is dead. Er Luo gritted his teeth. That great vicious Beast King is also dead. Urchin's brows were tightly knitted together. The creases on her single eye were extremely deep. Standing outside the cave, she had already peeked inside almost instantly. The 3-leaf soul grass is gone. Damn it! Er Luo shouted angrily, extremely unhappy. However, he couldn't vent his anger. The 2 great vicious Beast King arrived one after the other, causing Er Luo and Er Kun to run away again. It was already difficult enough to fight 3 against 2, let alone 2 against 2. They were even more battered and exhausted. They had even fought the ferocious Beast King before and had suffered some injuries. The possibility of mutual destruction is very small, Er Kun said in a low voice. We were plotted against by a third party. Er Luo's expression was ugly. He came from the DSI training camp and had seen all kinds of schemes. He saw through the situation at a glance. Yi Xiuan. Er Kun was very calm. Er Luo said, he was also targeted by the great vicious Beast King. The possibility is very small. That human, Er Kun said. That's right. Er Luo's one eye cracked open in anger, revealing his loftiness. A mere human dares to pluck the hair from a tiger's head. He's simply courting death. Er Kun sighed softly. We planned for so long and paid such a big price, but we didn't expect to work for others. Except for the cave guarded by the other great vicious Beast King, all the other treasures in the king's domain can't compare to this 3-leaf lemon soul grass. I will make him pay a heavy price. Er Luo's eyes were about to crack.